shirt? Like, is this really how depressed you are today, Teal?
I hope we're live, but I'm playing the music anyway, baby.
Dude, Teal
It's
is feeling it.
Friday. Woo!
Like, da, da, da,
Welcome back,
da.
Metropolis. I've had an attitude all week. All week, you guys. An attitude. So
Uh-oh,
now
Teal's gonna message me for
we are
directly. He's
going.
pissed about this.
Yeah, JD, how many times did I text you this week?
We've been
Think
texting
about
all
that.
week about this because this is going back to your roots, Cassandra. I mean, the whole Cassandra show has been going on for over a year. A lot of people don't realize that, but race is what like puts you in front of like the masses. And
Mm-hmm.
when you did that rat race and everyone was all opinionated and was down Brandon Bay's throat for being a horrible broker or perceived as so, he
Mm-hmm.
handled his own. He stood his ground. But now, guys, the market has shifted.
It has shifted. And so let me give Metropolis a little introduction because I've been fuming all week, like JD said, and I'm glad we're having this show because we need to unite again. And
Yep.
so what you're going to see today is an old school, old, I can't believe we're saying old school because it was only 4 months ago, but it's old school, wild debate style. Anyone can come on. The floor is open. The mic is open. Here's what you need to do. Our focus is going to be on YouTube today. So if you're not participating, go to YouTube. The link is, of course, in the comments. You'll find it. Amanda Miller, Chris Jolly, Serta. You got a lot of people who will give you the link. And if you want the mic, you come to Zoom. That's only for the people who want the mic. And you're going to raise a virtual hand when you have something to say. And then when JD has time, he's going to bring you on. Be patient with us. If you guys remember old school style when we used to do this, you had to be patient. And then you couldn't violate the rule. There's a golden rule, you guys, which is don't talk about your company and don't sell us anything.
Don't talk about your company. I don't care where you work. I really don't. I promise you.
We really don't care. And we want you to teach us and we want to know what's going on in your head. We don't give a shit about your company or your product. That's the truth.
YouTube is not live, guys. Everybody's saying YouTube isn't live. LinkedIn is live right now, but YouTube is not live.
You know, I was fiddling with YouTube today, you guys. Give me 1 second.
We see you, Godfather. Once you say something, we know it's law. We appreciate that. Chris Jolly, thank you. Larry Gervin, thank you. Vitali, thank you.
All right, give me 1 second, guys. I wondered if this would happen because I was messing around with YouTube today and I was so excited.
Here's the reason why Cassandra's doing it. Here's why she says no
Thank
companies.
you, JD.
A lot of people get on here and they want to promote their company, and that's what you're supposed to do. It's a knee-jerk reaction. But the whole purpose of Madtropolis is to dissipate away from companies and to have individuals who are seeking to progress and innovate the industry. If we all rely on our companies to continue to innovate the industry, we're going to see the industry stay exactly the same as it's been for the past 25, 30 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Companies just want to stay companies. They want to keep their profit margins high. They want to stay away from the drama. That's what companies do. Individuals, we need to change that. So in 5 years, we can see some differences in the transportation industry. And for people that keep posting under Cassandra's post of, this isn't anything new. This has been happening for 20, 30 years. No shit, Sherlock. You want a fucking cookie? Sugar,
Listen,
chocolate, oatmeal? What
Two
you want,
cuss words.
snickerdoodle? Let me know. Yes, we know that this has been happening for 20, 30 plus years, but that doesn't mean that it's right. That
mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that it's advantageous for every person. So this group of people here, I think it's like 60, 70 people on LinkedIn, 60, 70, no, it's almost 70 people here. Guys, we're trying to change the industry, okay? That's what the whole purpose of Madtropolis is. So if you're not a portion of that to change the industry, you can post on LinkedIn, you can post under Cassandra's um, comments and say that shit. But the only thing I will say, and Cassandra's gonna kick my ass when I say this, you guys are real bold when you send Cassandra messages, but you don't send me the same strength messages when you talk to me.
Ooh.
You are real saucy when you're talking to Cassandra. But when it comes to sending me a message, I've seen people send Cassandra threatening messages or paragraphs, and then when they message me, it's 2 sentences talking about JD. I had a no.
That
Send
is
me the
actually quite
same
true.
intensity. I'm
That is
sick
quite
of you
true.
guys attacking Cassandra over her being who she is, but you won't attack me the same way because you know good and well I'll catch that $67 flight. And that's
And
a
I want
Happy
round
to,
trip.
Friday.
I
Happy
want to,
Friday.
Happy
fucking
Friday.
Friday, you guys. You can tell that
Yes.
all of us this week have been really, maybe not you, Brandon, you look kind of happy, but many of us this week, we've been in rare form. And you know what my thing is, JD, is that, and Brandon too, is that, do you remember, this is going to blow your mind. I'm actually not going to, do you remember maybe 4 months ago when COVID first hit and carriers were actually like they were jacking up prices?
It was up.
It
It
was
was up.
crazy. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And we had a show about that. We're like, whoa, carriers, yeah, you got to make money, but this is crazy. And then all of a sudden, rates fucking tanked.
Tanked.
And then that's when all hell broke loose. And carriers, and you guys saw some of the posts that I posted on LinkedIn. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go to my LinkedIn profile and look at the things that I screenshot into my post. They were keyboard warriors at their best. They were people who owned trucking companies. They were truck drivers themselves. They were brokers. Everybody was going back and forth, blaming each other, saying these rates are so low, how dare you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, the thing is that we were tired of the screaming and the yelling, and
Yep.
we're all tired of this cycle of this up and down, and everybody blaming each other. So here we sit again after 3 months of going through these low rates and watching brokers get beat up and shippers get beat up. Here we sit again with high rates, and carriers many of them are deathly silent. I can't,
Yes.
the ones who were so vocal, JD,
Yes.
Quiet as church mice.
so loud, they are quiet as church mice, and they won't come on. And then the ones who are coming on today, they're our carriers. Like they're Metropolis carriers. They're true to heart from day one. They've been our carriers. So, and you'll see them. And in fact, Brandon, it's funny because some of the brokers and shippers have messaged me, and they're like, "We're really excited about the topic today, but we really want to watch and see what carriers come on."
But the
Because-
topic it's a great topic, but here's the thing though, drain the swamp. What the issue that we're really starting to see, and I'm about to say it, and I'm gonna shut up. A lot of you guys are mediocre. Your leadership is mediocre. And so you didn't have contingency plans, you didn't have anybody bidding on lanes to outlast what was taking place in the economic market. So you're starting to realize some of these directors and VPs, they just got titles, but they have shit else behind their fucking name. I'm done. All right, I'm on a
And
mood
it's-
today.
it's
I'm
like-
gonna-
JD,
Okay, I see.
you said like 17 cuss words. You have to put a bunch of money in the jar.
Dude,
Yeah.
I am in a mood today. Trust me.
I am too, and I got him wound up right before we got on because I was upset about a bunch of stuff, and I really want us to come together as a community, and I want us to remember that rates go up and down, capacity tightens, capacity is going loose, and no matter what, we all need to come together, which we have been, and we all need to unite on this platform. So JD and I are offering this platform. We're offering the fucking mic so that people can get it off their chests, and we can all
Yep.
figure out how to move on. And
Yep.
Marina, I saw you message here that you're a carrier. You're in the house. Thank you for being here. But you've also been one of our carriers this whole time too. So we're excited. We've invited and we'll open the floor to carriers. So first, let me make sure. I don't know if TJ's here or not. He's probably TJ's going to join us in just a minute. But here's what I'll tell you guys. Everybody blames each other when rates are going up and down. Shippers, carriers, and brokers, and then drivers too. They're all yelling at each other. Each of us have responsibility when this volatility hits, and we each can do better, or we're already doing better, and we're going to illuminate that today because there are people who are doing better, and they're going to maintain that way. So for those of you making a lot of money and posting it on Facebook and getting very excited, I mean, we've all seen the Facebook post about how much money the carriers are making. Remember that you would have flipped out if brokers had done that, or shippers had done that 3 months ago. And for shippers who were taking the freight away and posting it on load boards 3 months ago, now want to honor their contracts with brokers. I'm seeing it, you guys. I see it all. And I'm going to hold everybody accountable and be here to remind everybody about these situations so that we can stop with the volatility. Obviously, the industry will always be that way, but not Metropolis, not our followers. We're going to be different. We're going to be better.
100%.
So let's get started. Here, I invited Brandon immediately to the show because here's the thing that I like about Brandon. First of all, he's been along with us the entire time.
Yep.
He's been with us since day one. And do you guys remember that? We went live, and I think, Brandon, you got on, and then we popped you back off. You didn't even get a chance to talk, and then we popped you back
Oh
on.
yeah. I did not get 1 second, and I think I got blocked out for Chad Boblet, and then my buddy texted me and said, "You just got punked." by rate per mile masters. And I was like, that's all right. He's got good content. And then I think somebody brought me back in, but no, I'm very lucky and blessed to meet everybody that I have and take part in this. And, you know, it's been a very cool experience going through, you know, the pandemic and just meeting such great people, whether you're a carrier shipper or, you know, a competitor. You know, I've already gained some great friendships. So, you know, I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to say that, you know, we're not promoting companies, but my favorite college team of all time is Cornell. So I really wanted to wear a shirt just
do you hear
just
that,
to
Andrew
show that
Teal?
off.
Do you hear that, Andrew Teal? Oh my goodness. And I really appreciate that. You actually just put me in a good mood. You saved everybody from a bunch of yelling and rambling.
But kissing ain't gonna save your life, Brandon Bay. It's not gonna save your life. Okay?
One thing that I wanted to ask you about, Brandon, one thing that I learned about you over a couple times you being on is you have your thumb on the pulse with regards to data and what's going on in the industry. I feel like you always got it. Like you kind of know beyond just your company and your own position, you just know what's going on in the industry. So maybe for those who are they're in the flatbed world or over dimension world and they just don't know what's going on, could you give us a little summary of what you think and what you've been seeing?
Yeah. So, you know, I just like to be in tune. I like to educate. I ask, you know, peers, mentors. You know, I've gained friendships through this that we talk about the market. You know, it's very important to be in tune and know what's going on. You know, obviously as we've came out of this pandemic and things have opened back up, you know, we've seen, it's no secret that we've seen volumes higher than 2018. Took a little bit for the rates to catch up, but they're here. You know, I kind of operate in the produce refrigerated market. So, you know, my view is a little bit skewed on that, you know, as it was summer months, you know, the carriers and especially the produce carriers, you know, they were making those low rates, you know, so produce season really hit hard. Obviously it's dying down now, but it was very interesting too, if you operate, you know, on the West Coast when they, you know, started bringing imports in, you know, then all the drive-in capacity. I mean, there were rates, drive-in rates that were, I don't know, $4.50 a mile going up to the Pacific Northwest. So that was a capacity crunch. You know, it's really tightened up. I've seen rates higher than 2018 in some lanes in some markets. I've seen some that are still relatively low. But I can tell you that, you know, you don't see carriers on here or on the White House front lawn, you know, asking for, you know, better rates or anything of that nature. And you don't see brokers out there picketing and saying that, you know, the carriers are taking too much money from us. So, you know, when we had this conversation, I thought it was only fair for us to kind of flip the script, given that the first conversation was the other way around. So, you know, I think that there are people that played the market then and they're playing it now. And I think there's some people that maybe they heard a little bit of what everybody was trying to say and started forming those relationships. But, you know, I'm very eager to hear, you know, some carrier takes and some other brokers and get everybody's opinion 3 months later from where we started. What
are those relationships looking like now? When we went through 3 months ago and we had multiple
question.
shows on this topic, we were, in fact, you guys, JD lost his shit on Bodabox and a wand, yelled at all of us about relationships and communication. I had somebody tell me that I have some people tell me, yeah, I'm really glad the carriers that I did make relationships with and that I wasn't lowballing as a broker or as a shipper, they're coming back and they are treating me well and they're responding. I mean, right now we just want carriers to pick up the fucking phone. They're like ghosting us. They've been running the same lane for months now, and now you can't find them. So what?
Oh yeah, all my trailers are, you know, they're getting maintenance. I don't have any trucks. They're all getting maintenance right now. No, you know, you're going to have relationships, and you know, we talk about this too, and on the show, you know, the majority of the market, you know, that's out there that people use is what 10 trucks or less, or somewhere in that range. You know, you can form those relationships, but I mean, I'll admit I have some good carrier partner relationships, but whenever this hit, you know, the rates were so low that it doesn't matter how good of a relationship you have. The carriers had to make money. They had to climb out of where they were. You know, the partnerships that I had, you know, I didn't get the rates that some people were, but we also had a conversation that the market was changing. and try to stay on the forefront of that. So, there's still the bottom feeders out there. There's still people that are paying those high rates and they're living the life 3 months ago. But we talk about this as well. It's up and down. You got to look at the long game. It's going to come out in the wash sometime.
But Brandon, you're not complaining about volatility, because I seen Chad Bobler said, why do you all not like volatility? I'm gonna address that directly, Chad.
I love volatility.
Thank you. It's not
I
the
love
volatility that's the issue. The issue is the discrepancies that take place during the volatility. A lot of you guys as characters begin to show during volatility, because you become snakes and you try to get as much as you can out of people that you say you care about, as much as you can, as you say, of people that you have relationships with. It's exploitation of that relationship. So it's not that we're disagreeing with the volatility. Volatility allows for there to be high profit margins, but you should not have to shit on everybody that you say you call a friend just to receive those high profit margins.
Volatility still, can you also say it makes you better? I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, you get those challenging times. I mean, volatility, you're going to go through challenges, right? You're going to learn how to adapt. The biggest thing for me is, it doesn't level the playing field. The people that work hard and try and put effort into it, get the benefit of it. The people that don't are the ones that are complaining. So yeah, of course, it gives somebody a chance to be a snake, but it also gives somebody a chance to grow and become better.
TJ, you have been a broker, but you're also currently, are you sitting in the carrier seat right now?
Yep, on the carrier side. Yep.
Okay, and Marina is in this carrier spot as well. These two are both from, TJ was one of the originals as well on the rate debate. Marina has been with us the entire time. In fact, she's going to join me one day, I think it's September, Marina, about hours of service that we're going to talk about. But have carriers, were you guys ready for the rates to go up? Or were you expecting, no, you weren't, Marina?
My head is spinning. My head is spinning from how fast we went to the bottom to the top. And we're really nervous. I don't know how long this will last. I don't know when it's going to drop again. So we're working really hard right now on establishing those relationships. It's so nice. Honestly, we feel so good to be in the top instead of the bottom, but we're not taking advantage of it. We're being smart. We remember the bad times. We haven't forgotten. I don't have amnesia. So I'm reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, let's set up a base rate. I know we're here all the time. Let's do this plus the fuel surcharge, and let's lock this in for a little while so we're both protected. And I'm finding that brokers are much more willing to do that now. So it's nice to have that. But really one thing I wanted to mention real quick to Brandon, you're saying a lot of your equipment's being maintenance right now. An issue that we're finding that a lot of people are not talking about is that drivers are taking advantage of the PPP loans, the unemployment, and they don't want to come back to work. So now we're having a little bit of a shortage issue just because or they'll tell me, I'm scared. I don't want to go to COVID. It's a hot spot. We go to Texas. I don't want to go to Texas. It's a hot spot. I'm not driving. So then they do that last minute. So that could be an issue too, that you don't see enough capacity. It's not necessarily there's a lot more reason why there's no capacity.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I would say on the carrier side, I mean, I've been on the broker side, the breakdown is an excuse, but a lot of these guys, didn't take care of their trucks during this. I don't know how many guys went to go get their truck and it didn't start. They're not taking care of it. There's no preventative maintenance because they weren't making any money. They weren't. And then all of a sudden we get on and we're like, now you got to run. And they break down. I mean, I had a guy break down on 4 consecutive loads, but it's all relative. And again, the good carriers that actually are, running into those issues aren't, being helped by the people that are using it as an excuse. But it is one of those things that, when it comes in, fast like it does, you got to be ahead of it. That was one big thing I wanted to do. I talked to my customers directly, just saying, listen, I'm going to provide you capacity, but it's a committed capacity is what I always say. So we're going to ramp up slow. We're going to do whatever we can. We're going to, reallocate trailers, whatever we got to do. But I want to do it right. I don't want to overcommit and, things like that. But I can make something happen for you. And we have. I mean, I've been on the phone with them at night, whatever it is to get stuff done. But like you said, you got to, when in the good times is when you really got to evaluate your strategies because, it's always going to flip the other way.
And just to touch base, we're talking about the market and the rates. Y'all better be thinking ahead because DOT Blitz Week is next week. So you better have those relationships. You better start thinking ahead because as volatile as the market is, it's going to be really, really rough next week. Just my opinion.
For carrier, when the rates get and the volume goes up like this, when the capacity goes down for carriers that aren't just running the DAT board or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of strategies that go into it. I mean, we're hurting a little bit just from the standpoint of you know, again, capacity. I mean, our customers are calling us. We need trailers. We need this. We need that. And so you do start to scramble. Of course, you're making you know, decent money and better money, but it is something you got to adjust with. And I've really pushed on my dispatchers too to make those relationships. I mean, when you call in and you give them a rate and they say, yeah, I'll take it right now. Just tell them, hey, listen, you already know it's good enough, right? You already know it's a pretty good rate. Say, hey, listen, can I do something? Can I take this for, you know, $50 less? Let's do that. I want to shoot you an email. I want to get you on my truck. I want to send my truck list out every morning. So you guys can see that. You guys have a load list you can send out too. And just start a conversation, right? I mean, you get their attention. They just got beat up all day long and you're asking them for $50 less. You know, you don't do that on every lane, right? Or every load, but there's just some times when you know you're making enough and you didn't even really haggle that you can do that. So if you could take advantage of that, you can get some allies, you know, when it comes down to it.
I want to go back to Marina's point about capacity and drivers, because many of us, I want to make the difference between, in my email, by the way, I went on a rant yesterday, and I mean this morning, and I had said that, you know, a lot of carriers out there are making up excuses for taking a more profitable load, whether it's a family, it's COVID, it's maintenance. And then Marina brings up the point about, hey, sometimes capacity is going to be tight because these drivers are getting paid more at home, which I never thought of. And that's a really good point. Carriers who are out there, you should be more like Marina and tell people up front that you have a driver shortage. But the other thing that I want to ask you, Marina, is are those your company drivers that you pay by wage, or are they actually owner operators?
These are our contracted drivers. So owner operators. But yes, so they have the, you know, the ability to apply for a PPP loan. But our company drivers have stayed with us and they haven't had any issues for that.
That's weird, Marina. I thought you would mean your company drivers, because owner operators, they probably could hold on to that PPE money, that loan money, and then go run loads that at least I'm seeing on Facebook.
You're talking about an owner operator who has that sense. There are some owner operators that just wanted to get the PPP and just wanted to go sit home, and they didn't want to move at all. Like I've talked to some of them that once they got that loan approved, and hit that bank account, they considered that vacation for the next 3 months.
Yeah. And then again, they didn't take care of their truck and now they're out trying to run. But, you know, capacity, you know, that plays a role for sure. I think, you know, I had put a post out earlier about how many trucks were in the automotive industry. You know, if you're pushing 600,000 at least, I mean, when you're talking the amount of loads that are ran, they're all back there again, right? So you pull that, you pull a lot of stuff coming to the ports now. I know Louisiana's real hot right now. So everything's kind of moving to certain areas that are real hot, and then some are just dead because you're just pulling whatever capacity there is down to a Port Island or you know, Louisiana, places like that that are pushing the stuff in the port. So you gotta know where it's at and know where to be. But at the end of the day, there's multiple things. But yeah, the PPE loans, it is something I've seen too, and they sit at home.
Are a lot of your drivers owner operators, or are they company paid?
All owner operators.
So you are seeing probably the same thing.
Yeah.
They may be dropping you like they're dropping brokers, actually.
I mean, you'll call and offer them loads, and unless it's you know, paying really, really good, they'll just stay home. I mean, and that never used to be how it was. It was like, I got to get moving. I can't sit. So it's definitely different.
Well, they can't think they're sitting home for the rates. I mean, you know, they got the PP, the rates are going up. So they're just choosing just to stay home just because.
Thank you, Brandon.
I mean, that doesn't really make sense. A short game.
Well, it's not nearly like just in the last 2 weeks, I'd say that I've seen a little bit more of them, you know, reaching out, whatever it is, and trying to, I mean, they're slow moving, but those guys are the ones that are breaking down. I mean, we have a pretty good safety department and stay on top of that stuff, but I've seen it, talk to a lot of people in the industry, and they get in their truck and they want to go, and it either doesn't start or, you know, breaks down.
But he's not lying about that. TJ, what you're saying, what basically happened there was a maintenance bubble, and the maintenance bubble is bursting right now. So when COVID first happened, all truckers, owner operators, company truck drivers were go, 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 go. Don't worry about it. Unfortunately, we already had an issue with posting pre-tripping, even though, you know, Dave Abels and One Crack made it popular again, but people weren't post-tripping, people weren't pre-tripping. And so they were just pushing their trucks to the limits. Now that we got through COVID and we're kind of on that back trail, even though things are picking back up, the trucks aren't able to keep at pace. Maintenance shops are 4 or 5 weeks out right now when it comes to just PMs. I'm not saying major heavy duty shops. I'm talking PMs are scheduled 3 to 4 weeks out right now because people waited 4 months to actually get their shit done. So we're seeing a crisis right as the bubble is burst, trucks just being in shops.
Yep. I mean, you got guys, I know guys that I've heard are ordering parts off eBay because they're just going to come quicker than the shop, you know. And you look at, I like the pre-check and post-check thing. I mean, that takes time, right? Nobody wants to do it, but it's so huge, especially when you're dropping trailers. You're leaving that trailer for somebody else. Now they got to go get it fixed. And that affects capacity more than you think, because now that load you committed to, guy's down, he's late. Now they're going to maybe take it from you, put it back on spot bid, things like that. It plays a huge role when it comes to it.
For those of you who are just joining us, we are talking about the volatility of the markets, and we're reflecting on where we were back in April, where brokers were and shippers were considered scum, and they were so ashamed that when I asked brokers to come on the show, they would tell me that they were scared to be visible back in April, and that they didn't think that it was appropriate time for a broker to be on. So now here we are talking about the different circumstances that we are in with these high rates, and how can we remember to be partners and remember to be good citizens of Metropolis, and to beat back this volatility, and that we all play a role in it. So for those of you who want to come on the show and have a voice, you'll see in all the chats there should be a Zoom link. You don't have to watch. You come to Zoom and you raise your virtual hand, and then we'll try to get to you as soon as possible to bring you up. Otherwise, we are all on YouTube, and JD's watching the comments, and we have moderators watching the comments as well. I'll tell you the number one rule if you decide to come on today is drink some beer, and don't say anything about your company. We don't care who you work for, and we don't want you selling either. We want to know things like what Marina and TJ and Brandon have been teaching us, which are right now, the maintenance bubble is popping, is what we're hearing. And drivers and owner-operators, most importantly owner-operators, might have just gotten their loan money, and they've decided to stay at home, which is still mind-baffling to me, Marina. It's still mind-baffling to me, because I'm like, keep that money. It's your safety money. Hold that over here and pretend it doesn't even exist. And then wait, because Marina says she's worried. She doesn't know when these rates are going to dip again. So work and get these big, huge, like I saw a carrier on Facebook saying that he was making $10,000 this week. $10,000 fucking dollars this week, you guys.
He probably is. And it depends on what vertical he's in. You know, but I will tell you, like, what goes up must come down. You know, the market always corrects itself in some way. So, you know, it's increasing to peaks that we've never seen before, just like the bottom. It will come down. It's not going to be sustainable in my mind. You know, obviously, as we come out of this, depending on how each state and a country as a whole, you know, reacts to the pandemic. But, you know, I don't think this is going to last into next year or to the end of next year. I think it's going to correct itself.
Automotive booming right now. I mean, a lot of them did shut down. I mean, that's huge there, but you know,
the automotive industry.
Yeah, and again, it's how smart are you being right now? I mean, of course, you were hurting there 2-3 months ago, and now you can go make the money to make up for it. But it's just like they say this in regular life with money. You know, there's never a good time to start saving, but you just got to do it, because if you don't, you'll always be up and down and up and down. And until you get out ahead of it, and JD, you like this, but I compared it to, you know, a truck maintenance thing. You know, if you're building relationships, if you're taking advantage of it. Right now, carriers have an opportunity when the rates are up, not because of rates, but because other people are hurting, right? When I want to go talk to a customer or talk to a broker when they're doing well, they really don't care that much. I'm sorry, but their things are going well. They get to go ahead and do what they're supposed to do their job right, go home. Right now, they're hurting. So if you can bring some sort of value, if you can, I mean, I'm just really pushing service, trying to show people what we can do. And when it's all said and done, when it comes down to that 5 core carriers that they end up with at the end, they're cutting a bunch of them. We may be one of them.
Well, I want to say something about how much I've learned from this talk. I was there listening, you know, during the whole, you know, low rates. I was there. I was living it. I was the one getting emails saying, hey, the customer is telling us we need to lower our rates, even though we've done incredible service with you for the last 2 years and had 1 late delivery out of 500 loads. So we went through that, and I started thinking, what can I do differently in this situation? So I learned from you. I reached out to all those people who were loyal to us, and I said, thank you. I sent them a DoorDash gift card and said, here's some lunch, you know, for us as a thank you, because even though times are tough, you're sticking with us, you're not lowering our rates. We get through this. And now those customers, we're not raising the rates on them. They're keeping them the same. and we will take a 20% cut. We could get a load for 3,000. We're taking it for 26, but we are keeping that same because we know we have that consistency with them. Does that make sense? So there are good carriers out there who value that relationship. So I don't want everyone to be like these carriers. Sometimes I hear that these carriers, but there are good carriers out there, and we just do what we have to do to survive right now and make it through. But thank you for all your information. I learned a lot. I love this group. You guys are awesome.
Yeah,
No,
stay
that's
with us
good.
because you most certainly demonstrate. I'm going to pop you back in, and anybody who if I see you guys, if I pop you guys back in and out, or JD does, know that if
Hey,
you have
I don't
something to
have
say
the power
again,
to right now.
would you say JD?
I don't have the power to right now. I'm
Oh
trying to
shoot, JD,
promote
I'm
people, but
sorry. I was wondering what you were doing. I'm like, geez, JD, blah 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 blah. He's probably just singing songs over there. No, I'm just kidding. But I want you guys to know that for those of you who've been on the screen, like Marina, TJ, and Brandon, you are our Metropolis people. So if you want to come back on, just raise your hand, let us know. But I am trying to pop in some additional people so we can get some voices in here. Jeff Lerner, who's also a Metropolis follower. How are you, Jeff? Where are you from?
I'm doing well. I'm in San Diego.
Oh, nice. Are you guys still on lockdown?
I mean, every day it changes because every day something happens where, a bunch of 20-year-olds go to a bar. Next thing you know, you have an outbreak.
Yes, that's so true.
And the beaches, that's the downside of the beach life.
San Diego, man, can you afford to live out there? Are you eating on ramen noodles and SpaghettiOs? Like, what are you doing?
Ramen noodles and SpaghettiOs, if that means I get 360 days of sunshine a year, I'll take it.
Yeah, me too. I see a diploma above your computer screens. Is that a diploma? What is that?
Yeah. So the ones behind me, that's my diploma and my wife's diploma.
Oh, that's very nice. Andrew Teal gets mad at me when I talk about my alma maters. So I like to point out other people's education to annoy him. But are you a broker or are you a carrier?
So we're on the broker side, but more on the tech broker side. So we do something a little bit different using technology.
Don't you sell it. Don't you sell it,
But
Jeff.
I'm not.
He's like, I'm not.
So,
I'm not. I
No.
swear.
So here's my question. Let me back up too and say, I am not a freight guy. I'm a marketer, so that's how I got into the freight world. But so I don't have that freight background. But from everything I've learned in my econ classes and other things, you talk about shippers and you talk about carriers and their ability to negotiate, have those conversations, find common ground. But it sounds like, and from everything I've experienced in my time, that potentially brokers are the ones that cause the adversarial relationships between shippers and carriers, because you don't just have two sides talking to each other saying, how do we make this work for us? There's also that middle ground that says, well, it's got to work for now 3 legs of a tripod instead of 2. And so as brokers, we try to do everything we can to have relationships, to create longer lasting engagement, so we're not always hitting the spot market and then having those problems. So I'm just kind of curious about the sentiment around.
Here's the thing. I had this conversation earlier today with a shipper. Okay. And so he was saying something along the lines of that, it's something about the brokers, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, because I used to work for brokers. I worked for carriers and I worked for shippers, is that we need the brokers. And people who are not true brokers and have never sat in that desk, they don't understand it. But the thing is that all these trucks are the little mom and pop trucks running around this country. Brokers are the ones who go and find them and are at their mercy. And then brokers turn around and are at the shipper's mercy. So when you sit at a broker's desk, you provide the incredible value that you allow all of these little mom and pop trucks to even exist. They wouldn't even exist without brokerage. We're the sales arms of the brokerages is what brokers
Yeah,
Good point.
I guess what I'm saying too is, and I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, is, Guy, you started this whole meeting with talking about ways to get better, 5 years from now, how this, this industry evolves. And so to me, I'm thinking, how is it that we improve communication to a point that the relationships don't become adversarial from shipper to broker to carrier?
I don't think they are. I think that on social media and a lot of yelling, there's all that yelling between them. But I actually think that brokers are the ones who bring these parties together. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce you guys to Adam Wingfield. So Adam, you're the one person who gets to talk about his show every Monday night, which I'm addicted to. It's on Instagram. What is your show called again?
So we do Motivation Mondays, but we are shifting that now. We're coming up with a different platform. We're going to shift it to Tuesday. So kind of keep that in mind.
Okay, good to know. I just go whenever Instagram, if you guys find Adam and follow him on Instagram, I'll tell you why. I'm not here to promote Adam, his company, or his show. He provides education.
Yep.
And he's just like us, providing education. Adam, what do you think about everything that Jeff just said?
So I kind of, honestly, what Jeff said, really, he hit the nail on the head. And the reason why I say that, even just from a carrier perspective, there's a huge gap between communication between carrier, broker, even dispatch and shipper. And the problem that I see is when you think about transportation, so I've been in trucking for a very long time, practically all my life. We're talking about 21 years. It's always been a relationship building business, right? And the currency is a true relationship. And that's why the broker is so important. But because you see carriers that use the hearsay model of information, they all believe our brokers are out here just to stick us and just to shaft us, when that's really not the case. The broker is on the other side. They work so hard, and I don't have any skin in the game on the broker side or the carrier side. I'm the guy in the middle, right? But the brokers are the ones that's building relationships. They're the ones out here that's going through, making the cold calls, doing 200, 300 cold calls a day. And then when you challenge a carrier to do the things that they need to do to build a business, and when we think about building a business on the carrier side, do you have your carrier packet together where you can actually solicit your own business? Are you able to make those connections? Do you have those rates that you can actually be fair and be amicable when you present those to your potential shippers? But the problem is, and just like what Jeff said, one of the biggest problems is communication, period. When they pick up and deliver, sometimes you can't get a hold of them. They're not getting PODs turned in on time. But then you think about the transportation industry as a whole. Transportation is still old school. Why are we still signing bill of ladings? This is 2020. Why the hell are we still signing bill of ladings?
Be careful, Adam. You go lose friends, Adam. Be careful.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm like, it's absolutely asinine. And then when you say TMS, and the thing about it is when you talk TMS, right? When you talk TMS to a smaller carrier that may have one or two trucks, they have no idea what that's for. They'll have no idea what the potential that TMS system can do. But when you got a broker that can communicate seamlessly throughout that, then that makes a huge difference. And I think that for just your average small mom and pop that really doesn't understand the business of transportation as a whole, I think what Jeff really painted a picture is the gap that is truly on both the carrier side. We got the carrier side of it. Honestly, it's on the broker side as well. Because you've got some brokers that really struggle with appropriate communications and really staying clear and professional.
And what is appropriate communication? Like, I hear what you're saying. You got 21 years in the game, and you got people over here on the right side saying, Adam for president, Adam, we loving this. What is the appropriate communication? Because we said this before, communication relationship for the brokers, but we haven't gotten to the nitty gritty. What do brokers need to say to the carrier, to the shipper, in order for this relationship to be fused together?
Number one, you need to be transparent, right? Don't tell a carrier that you picking 20,000 pounds. The carrier gets there and it's a 42,000 pound shipment. So really, transparency in the message is number one, absolutely most important. Having all the details, right? So when we talk about getting, and this is one of the things that gets you in trouble. Have all the details. If there's going to be a detention there, be honest, be straight up forward. If there's a detention there, make sure you communicate that, hey, when you get here, it's probably going to be a detention there. But you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to integrate that into the rate. We can go ahead and discuss that and make sure we have that. If there's a lumper involved, make sure you let the carrier know that there's a lumper involved, because I can't tell you how many carriers in the middle of the night are looking for T checks or com checks in the middle of the night at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to pay a lumper. And you know what? You got a guy that's in a truck that may not necessarily have that kind of cash on him. Now he's sitting waiting until the next day. So from a communication perspective on the broker side, that shipment from the beginning to the end, that broker needs to do his homework. Do your homework. Know what's going on. So that way, when you have that information and the carrier picks that information up and they drop the ball on their end, that's their problem to deal with at that point. But
Adam, that's not their responsibility, Adam. Brokers.
What do you mean it's not their responsibility? That's not true.
That's not their responsibility, Adam.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is their responsibility. And I'm going to tell you why. If you want me to take a shipment from point A from point B for you, I need to know all the details for it, because you know what? At the end of the day, that's your relationship that you built. And if I don't get it there on time, then guess what? that's going to come back on you just as much as it's going to come back on me.
For those of you who don't know, Gov is being extremely sarcastic and he's poking at the bear.
Hey,
and
you know
that's
what?
why we
Hey, it's all
love him. Adam, we love you. Stay with us for a minute because I want to go back to you with another question.
Yes.
But I got to be honest. So first of all,
It's an empty. I have not. I told him to leave it for Monday. I'll get him something for Monday.
Okay, thank you. So Drew, are you a carrier or are you a broker or are you something else?
Hey guys, I'm a broker with a 3PL in Canada, so I know it's a little bit different than what's going on in the States, but I've been doing it for 8 years, and this is actually the first time on my new web camera, so I'm not used to doing the video side, so I apologize.
That's
I actually
perfect.
spent
You're perfect.
2 hours making notes for this, deleting most of it because I don't want to talk about what my company does, and I get it. So
Yeah.
I deleted some of this, but
I gotta say something though, Drew, something that really annoyed me. And this is my own personal fault. And for any of those of you who kind of agree with me or you disagree with me, could you put it in the comments? Because when Jeff spoke, I got this vibe that he's a digital broker. That's what I got the vibe of. And I keep hearing this about digital brokers. They want to eliminate brokers entirely. They view brokers as worthless, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not that way because I know what a brokerage is about and I worked for him. So it hits a nerve, you guys. It hits a nerve. And I just wanted to say that because I think some of you know me, knew that hit a nerve. And I apologize to Jeff if I felt like that. But I don't want to hear, hey, Jeff's back. I don't want to create this animosity, but we've talked about digital brokerage a lot lately. But to go back to the point of this discussion, which is these high rates and us learning from each other. Drew, what are some of your thoughts?
So we actually operate 26 trucks, so I get to see the drivers, but we're also a brokerage, so I get
and don't
to
forget
see
to look at your webcam, by the way.
Sorry? Oh, yeah, sorry. So I know this whole discussion of current relationships mixing with rates is causing tons of problems. And I think the best way we can really sort through this all is understanding each other's needs. A carrier is always going to be operationally focused, positioning their assets on where the trucks are going, their maintenance, the routing. And now since COVID, exponentially amount of focus is now on their drivers' health and safety. That's how they eat and earn a living ultimately. A broker or a 3PL should always be focused on a customer's experience while they don't have to worry about their own equipment or focusing time on positioning and maintaining that maintenance of their equipment. And they should be focused on maintaining that experience the customer gets by using them and keeping those relationships up for their customers to keep selling and doing what they do best. Now that we have the differences, it's important that both companies understand their needs for each other in order to grow and be successful. The trucking company needs the brokers to find the freight or the backhauls for them as they're busy concentrating on keeping their internal operational focus on their equipment. That broker needs that relationship they have with the trucking company to deliver a great experience for their customers, and understanding the needs of each is important in maintaining and building those strong long-term relationships. Like you said, you want the bottom of the barrel guys gone. This is where companies, both trucking and brokers, have run into some issues. It's all about price, and the experience that the brokers are hoping to get won't be there because at some point in time, that truck just won't show up, or you rolled the dice, but that carrier took someone else's freight for a little bit more money. If it's not a constant beatdown to get that lowest rate, then that transport partner might be more inclined to keep that strong relationship going and might turn down those other loads that might slightly pay more. So it's definitely important that both parts come together as a synergy. Both sets of relationships are the reason why both coexist. One keeps the customer happy while the other one goes out to find more business that fits in order to keep those wheels turning. And how do we get here as brokers?
Drew, I got to burst the bubble because it looks like you're reading the script.
I don't know if you heard me at the beginning.
Thank God somebody said that. Sorry, Drew.
First time on camera, so I was a bit nervous, so I jotted this down. So I do apologize.
But Drew, we want to encourage people come on here. Don't script. Like, look at. Okay. Here's the thing, and I love you pieces. You're gonna stay with us. So here's what you're gonna do. I want you to take a moment, because you're awesome. I want you to take a moment. First of all, next time you come on, ditch the shirt with your company name on it.
Yeah.
But I want you to take a moment and truly think about what the issue is and what you want to say too, from your heart, not from a script, by the way. So just stay with us for a little while. I'll bring you back on a little bit later. You're going to raise your hand when you have something to say that's not on the script, though. That's not on the script. So Ingrid, the love of my life, Ingrid. Ingrid, for those of you who do not know and who are brand new to
Don't you try to take Ingrid away from me. Don't do that.
Here we go. Here we go.
Everybody knows me and the medallion have a special connection. Do not try to take Ingrid from me. Thank you.
Ingrid, you were one of you are one of the originals, and you've continued to stay with us throughout at Madtropolis. And for those of you who are just joining us today, we are going to talk about and revisit the April rates, the crash when brokers were scum and shippers were winning and sitting on piles of money, and there were protests, and everybody who was a broker or shipper felt like shit. We are revisiting that to remind the carriers that are out there and the brokers and the shippers of who we are and why we're here. So Ingrid, what have you been seeing out there? What's been going on in your mind? And tell us what you've been thinking since you've been hearing all this. And you've been with us the whole time. So thank you. I appreciate it for your support over the months.
Thanks. I'm close. Thanks for the friendship too. You know, it's so many.
You're talking to me, JD.
JD too. You know, it's been neat because you've all been with me through my journey through this too. And you know, I've been out here and you fussed at me about going home and everything else and needing to go home. And you know, I've stayed steady. I mean, I've ran my butt off all the way from March when all this hit. I have literally, 3 days at Easter that I was home, and that's it. I'm heading back home tomorrow. I'll be there this week. My thing is I'm going to piss some people off here, and some that I truly love, and some that probably won't love me after this, but here you go. You know, step up or shut up. The thing is quit bitching, quit griping, and do your job. This isn't a thing about who's right, who's wrong, who's getting more than this one is, because in the end of the day, it comes out in an equal playing field. Ooh. Because 365 days of the year, if you don't have something to do in 365 days, you only want that reduced to 4 months. You know, what are you going to do with making relationships? If you can't make a relationship that relationship isn't for 365 days out of the year, then you need to back up, regroup, and see what your business model, as everybody's calling it today, is made of. And to do that, you have to have the relationship. Brokers are all the time talking about building their relationships with carriers and shippers. Well, what are drivers and carriers supposed to be doing? I mean, do we think that we just need to sit here in our big shiny truck and ride up and down the road and get it through the blue beacon and look all badass coming out of the other end, and y'all call me and tell me I've got a high dollar paying load, or it's a really sorry, rates have dropped and I know really hate to do this? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We have to make our own relationships as well. And if I don't make that relationship with you, if I don't make that relationship with shippers, with brokers, with everybody, where are we all going to come together? We can't keep beating a dead horse. We've got to quit, walk away, pray that it'll come back to life, and go back and do CPR and blow in it. I don't care. This has got to be fixed, but it's got to take everybody. And the bitching and the griping and the whining and the moaning is not helping at all. So what do? We all jump in and quit being lazy. We quit waiting for the person beside of us to do for us, because if they'll do it, maybe it'll bleed over and I won't have to. No. No. I got to do my part. And if I don't do my part, and if you're not doing your part, I'm sorry, I don't need you around me either, because I'm going to do my part and yours if you are, and that's bad for me.
What,
and I'm not one to do it for everybody else.
What do you think, Martin? What do you think about what Ingrid is saying? Are you a carrier? Or are you a broker?
I'm a carrier. We're a carrier in a warehouse. She's right. Honestly, she's right. I think the thing that we find the hardest is that there's a lot of trucking companies or a lot of carriers that really do bend over backwards for their drivers. And in the good environments, like in 2018, that was all good. But like right now that there's not a lot of work, you could try to bend over backwards with somebody, but when the money's not there because of the rate, it is what it is. I mean, here's what I think is, a lot of times, and because I've been doing this for a while, the driver, if he refuses to load because the rate is too small, like it doesn't pay enough or something, 9 out of 10 times we're okay with it. Like, okay, I'll give it to the next guy. There has to be a stop at some point.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, I think as carriers or as trucking companies, we have to say, okay, driver, this is the absolute best rate we're gonna get. We can't get better than that. If you don't want to do it, we got to move on. And if you have, let's say you have 20 trucks and you have 10 of them that do that, get rid of 10 of them. I mean, if you can do a lot with less. Are you willing to do a lot with less? That's the problem. I mean, there's a lot of trucking companies that have a lot of good drivers that don't really take much about the rate. They know how things are. But we've had it to where in 2018, the rates were extremely good. And now there's completely the opposite. The problem is, let's just say there's $100 difference. The $100 difference also makes perfect sense if the rate if the fuel went down a bit. So some things go hand in hand. The education part of the trucking industry, I think as the office personnel, both CSRs, dispatchers, whoever, I think we understand it. But for the drivers to understand it on the outside, because they're really and truthfully by themselves in a little bitty, cubicle, if you want to say, in the truck for hours on end. So they don't get all the information that we get necessarily. So if we can explain to them, look, I wish I can give you that extra $100, but it's just not there anymore. Like to nickel and dime a customer or a broker because the driver wants an extra $25 for a scale fee, I'm not going to lose that load. I would rather pay it out of pocket and move on than to go back and forth with the customer over $25.
Yeah.
I think the reality that we're in right now has to set in. There's how many people unemployed right now, and thank goodness we're able to still keep our trucks running. Whether it may be less volume than it once was, we're still able to keep everybody running. We have drivers that are currently still making $2,000 a week take home, and like I said, it's an individual thing. If you want to go out of town, if you want to stay local, do you have hazmat? Can you do overweight? Do you do flatbeds? Do you do dry vans? Do you do containers? Do you do?
Martin,
Yes,
here's the thing. You got drivers that can do all of that stuff, but if the lane is drying up, then it's just drying up.
Correct.
That's outside of the driver's control. Economic recourse, unfortunately, right now is taking place. So we're starting to see that the lanes that could have been, let's say, $1,200 lanes, they were going for $600 and $700.
Correct.
Lane. So now these lanes are starting to go back up. That you could say the median or the equilibrium point for that lane is $1,200, but now that lane today or next week after the blitz could potentially be 15, 16, 17, 2,200, depending on whatever that rate may be going for. That's still not the driver's call. Correct. It's a low lane rate, and you're saying, hey, Mr. Driver, hey, Mrs. Driver, I just can't do that. Do you give any explanation into why the can't happen?
Yeah, for instance, I'll give you an example. Like one of our guys, very little English. He speaks very little English. So for him, I have to tell him everything translated, even on the paperwork. Now, I mean, he knows English as far as to communicate with DOT, to defend himself, and this stuff. But as far as the lingo, he doesn't understand. So every single load that I give him, I tell him, okay, it's $1,000. Last month, 2 months ago, a year ago, it was $1,200. The reason now it's 1,000 is because of the fuel or the customer base or whatever. Here, the more important thing I think I tell drivers is this is a long game, and if you think about just today's load or this week, it's gonna hurt you. You have to think about a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. I mean,
so what you're saying,
Martin, do you think that's our? Oh, go ahead, JD.
No, I was just saying he proved my point. He's not being one of those people that says, hey, Ingrid, fuck off. It's either this amount or it's not. He sat there and had a conversation, said, Ingrid, I know this isn't the rate that you want, and this isn't the rate that I want to give you, but this is what I can give you right now. But no, later on throughout this year, eventually I'm going to give you some better rates. And he has a conversation. But some of you brokers out there, and I'm not going to pick on you guys because I know this ain't the show to pick on y'all.
On you. When he says that, he's going to pick on you.
But y'all been saying fuck off to people, and either you take my rate or you don't, because you say you average 200K.
Yeah. No, I mean, like,
that's a bird statement. That's not for you, Martin. That's a bird statement right there. And I would like to ask that question to Martin and Ingrid: is why is it okay and this is me just not understanding maybe Facebook, but why is it okay for a driver to post how much money he's or she's making? And
What?
I mean, they're posting screenshots of rates saying, I just made blah, blah, blah. Oh, I made this, I made that. And they're going back and forth, and I see it. And I'm like, damn, if 2 months ago, if a shipper or broker had done the same exact thing, they would have turned into that bird guy.
I,
Remember that
I,
bird guy? Whew.
I
Why,
think
why is that, you guys? Why is that okay? What am I missing?
ladies first.
I think that's you,
I-
Ingrid. Woohoo.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin. And I like what you have to say. It's not okay. It's totally not okay. I've seen it too, and it's just like you just want to just go boom. And I mean, I've gotten bad about those people have to go.
Yeah.
Why? Here's the thing. Those are the ones that you're not seeing on this call. Those are the ones that you are seeing who are not conducting their business in the asset of building brokers, building relationships, or delivering freight. They can't be making that kind of money if they're on Facebook posting bullshit. I mean, I'm sorry. And if they are getting that rate, then they need to be taking care of that in a professional manner and protecting their customer and their broker and themselves with that freight. Because you know what? That's today's freight. Tomorrow's freight may be a whole lot different, and next year's may be even bigger than that. So I don't think it's okay.
When she says that.
I think it is just wrong. I think it's quit bragging, just stop.
And one of the things that I think that one of the reasons that happens is because there's a lot of independent contractors that have one or two trucks, just them and their driver. So from being the owner operator, or let's just say it's the owner operator that was leased onto a company, and he had a good check. I've had it to where they share information with each other, and they'll come back and tell me, how come that load paid that, or how come you gave this driver that? And the first thing I always tell them is, I can't worry about what everybody else is doing. I have to worry about what I have to do and dispatch or distribute the work evenly or whatever. Now, I always tell the owner operators one thing. Our job as trucking companies or as carriers is to do the best we can to at least try to recuperate the driver's fuel. If we think about this, the fuel is the fuel, but the dray is in reality labor cost. You're paying 70% labor cost. That's a lot of money. If you want to break it down hourly, most drivers get paid $50, $75 an hour, owner operators. That's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, if we can recuperate the driver's fuel, great. Recuperate. If it's $200 in fuel, get $190 if you can. Get as close to it as possible. But then you talk about the 70% labor cost, not dray. That's where we're like, okay, what is that worth? Because when it dropped from 1,200 to 700, that wasn't fuel. But that was, you say, some brokers, I think they were under the gun because it's just the pressure that they were on, not their fault. But there's also carriers, if you're going to take that work, at least know what you're doing. If you're going to take loads for $600 and you know you're not going to have a driver cover it, explain it to them why. And if you can't explain it to them, don't take the load. It's going to be harder to explain a bad situation than it is when you have it nice and dandy. Like I always say 2018 and 2008 are very different. 10 years apart. 2008 was horrible. 2018 was awesome. But no one thought that this would happen again.
Yeah.
And I think most people forgot about the 2008 times and just went crazy, especially in 2008. We knew people that were paying drivers $650 overweight at 100%, and right now they can't even get $100. So that to me wasn't a labor charge. It was just a little bit too ridiculous of a charge to be paying and charging customers, because now that's something that you're just not going to be able to get. So if I look at an overweight charge as far as labor, the 650 wasn't justified then, and it's definitely not justified now. So I think that was a bad business decision from the carrier, and it trickled down to the driver. So now the driver is going to blame the broker, but in reality, his trucking company committed a big mistake by being greedy. I think.
I see other brokers on the call nodding their heads, and a shipper too nodding their heads at what you're saying. Martin, stick around if you don't mind. I'm going to put you back in as an attendee. If you could stick around, Ingrid too, if you have time, Ingrid. Stick
Yes,
around.
I'm
And if you guys have something else to say, raise your hand. But I'm going to keep an eye out for both of you. I mean, wow. What some smart people. JD, what are we seeing in the comments before we get to some of my additional favorite guests?
I mean, the biggest things that people were saying in the comments was just having conversations, actually talking to the brokers, actually talking to the carriers, and making sure that you're clear. One of the things that he said that it popped up on the LinkedIn side of the comments, some of these carriers, some of these brokers are having disclosure clauses when it comes to what you're paying out for that load and what you're paying out for that lane. So for those conversations to be taking place, you have some people that are having issues with that, because for what Martin just said, oh, well, Jolly said he got $1,900 and Teal said he only got $1,200 for that same lane. That shouldn't be happening if you have the appropriate disclosure clauses on your BOL. So I'm confused about why he's receiving that a little bit. I've never seen that, Martin. And if that's happening, that's a lack of Cassandra, correct me if I'm wrong, that's just a lack of presence from your counsel.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they could get themselves in trouble as well. Keep an eye and let me know what else you see in the comments, because I feel bad. I'm like so sucked in by everybody who's talking.
That was my fault too.
I know, it's very interesting, right? Like everybody's sucking me in. Drew, I saw you nodding your head when Martin was talking about labor versus fuel. I'm just a dumb lawyer. Could you please educate me on what all that even means?
Yeah,
like if you were talking to somebody super basic, which is me, I saw everybody nodding their heads when he was talking, but then I was like, oh shit.
Nice shirt, Drew. Nice shirt, Drew.
Yeah, I love the shirt.
I went tropical and I deleted the script. Sorry, I didn't know the rules. My bad.
Yes.
My bad.
We want authentic. We don't want buttoned up. We want authentic, Drew.
All right, perfect. Well, you got him. I think, and I'm sorry for the truck drivers out there and the transport companies out there, because I've been part of that problem, right? The 99% of the decision makers that I'm calling every single day want to talk about price. And that's all I'm focused and stuck on. And when I bring it back to my dispatch partner, I'm asking them to hurt our relationships ultimately. And this has been the huge result, which is what you guys are here talking about today. So what we have to, as salespeople, have to let our customers understand is that we want them to have a good experience and a good service. We don't want them to be having us to beat our partners up. Because another thing they don't see is that they're living and saving that $50 or $100 world. That's the world they live in. They need to show their boss, this is what we save you. This is the job I do. What they don't see is all the money that goes into paying their salespeople to maintain their relationships they have with their customers. And here we are rolling the dice for $50 or $100 savings just to get that customer. Meanwhile, they would have paid that $100 tenfold to make sure they had that good experience in the end. And that's what causes the long-term relationships. So this is now what I sell, and I apologize because I've been part of that problem for years until I did realize there's more to it than that. I want them to see that, but it's up to us as salespeople and brokerages for these people to realize, the decision makers to realize how much actual money is involved, the expense accounts, the keeping their clients happy, all that. And here they are, the guy who's actually making decisions is here making those choices over $50 or $100. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent every year. So, you know,
I can see in the comments, Drew, that people are completely agreeing with you.
So to kind of touch on,
and Marina have said, yeah, go Drew. This is perfect. Go ahead, JD. Sorry.
No, I was about to say the same thing about the comments, but to his point though, Drew, that's a lot of what truckers and it's specifically shippers confuse when it comes to the carrier and the broker relationship. There is a lot of whining and dining that takes place on the client relations side in order to keep the relationships going. So that is an overhead cost for that. That's why you have a client relations person or you have a salesperson. What Drew is talking about, for you guys that aren't exposed to that, yes, people like me that's a VP of marketing, I do have to take out other people at other companies in order to maintain that relationship. Yes, Cassandra could be the VP of legal counsel at some company. I'm going to fly out to wherever Cassandra is. I'm going to take Cassandra out. I'm going to talk with Cassandra. I'm going to figure out, are we doing okay? She's going to say no. If she says no, my trip just extended a day. And I'm going to take Cassandra to lunch or dinner the next day until things are right. So you brought up a good point on there, Drew, that a lot of people don't see that back end cost.
It's because leadership doesn't really let brokers know what the actual cost of a load is. Josh Kale and I we're talking about this. You know, a lot of brokers think that, you know, oh, hey, I'm going to hold out for a $200 profit margin when it actually costs a freight brokerage $85 to $100 just to process the load when you factor in overhead and back end costs. So really, if you're making $100 on a load, you're breaking even in most cases. And that's not talked about. That's not brought down. When I was at my former employer, I mean, it was like, I think it was just under $75 to break even for a load when you factored in all overhead costs. And nobody talks about that.
That's true.
So
No one does.
Yeah. And that's an added cost as a broker that nobody speaks of. So really, you know, like if you want rate transparency, you know, like that's an overhead cost and you can factor that in there as well. So then, I mean, that you're just exposing yourself for another, that's not our fault. That's not our problem that you have that expense to process a load. So
we got a question out there, Cassandra, from Justin McAfee. He says, does it boil down to price always, or is it the inability to make your company unique?
Oh, Mr. Andrew Teal, do you want to answer that? Or Mr. And for those of you who don't know, Andrew Teal is very famous in Madtropolis.
No, I'm not.
And he's the man
Absolutely
behind the
not.
curtain. He's actually the person he says, and we do what he says. I just want everybody to know that. And but Andrew has worked in every position possible, I think, in this industry. He's been a truck driver, he's worked for shipper, he's worked for logistics, he's worked for trucking companies, he's done everything. So Andrew, what is your answer?
I was even a service writer. I was in JD's world for 2 years. So I had a lot of that one-on-one, face-to-face with owner-operators with one truck, owner-operators, so to speak, that have, you know, that average ATA 10 truck fleet, things like that. So I think Chris kind of hit on something. We talk about rate transparency and overhead transparency. And I know when it was time to roast brokers, it was, well, you shouldn't take more than 10%. I want to know what the shipper's paying, and then it's 10% from that. And I saw that in a lot of different places on social media. And it's like, okay, in that 10%, I need to do those things, which is to cultivate relationships so I can continue to get you good freight. And as a carrier, and I do say this, and Cassandra's right, I still hold a valid commercial driver's license. I'm a 4th generation truck driver. I've lived that life. I've been in Ingrid's seat. I know what that means. But what you have done when you go to a broker or you go to a load board or anything like that is you're outsourcing your sales department. You're saying this person's going to go out there and find me the things I need to do to facilitate my business, which is to move freight. So at the end of the day, it really shouldn't be a shock that, hey, I'm not getting all of that all the time. You're paid for a service, more or less, right? And it's the same with a factoring company.
Yes.
And it's the same with all the different things that carriers use to get through, you know, their week. So at the end of the week, they get their settlement check as, hey, this is a lot smaller than I thought it was as well. Hey, my factoring company took a chunk. You know, I'm using a broker maybe I wouldn't normally use or whatever, so I didn't get as great of a rate and things like that. Those are all things that people are performing for you. So that's part of that conversation. And to just say, well, you're allowed to have 10% or you're not allowed to have 10%, I don't think that's a constructive conversation to have, and it shouldn't even be on the table. I think we need to get past that. I think as an industry, we need to say, hey, I will try to do my best to stick with you, but if I don't have the freight, I don't have the freight. I would love to give you more freight. I just don't have it right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got a ton of freight. I gave you everything I had before. How can you help me take care of all this freight I got sitting on my dock?
I have a question for the three of you, Todd, Chris Jolly, and Andrew Teal. And you guys can decide who goes first, but let's put shippers on the hot seat for a moment. Why? Why do?
I couldn't help but laugh at that because when you said that, I just thought about Ron sitting on a hot seat and the facial expression that he would be making. Like it just made me think of
Ron's seat is hot because it's out in the sun. It's the back of a boat somewhere, Catalina Island. He's got a fishing rod in his hand.
Probably in Florida.
Yeah.
And Teal, just so you guys know, Teal
Chandler's out there driving.
And Chandler's out there driving the boat. Where is Chandler, you guys? He's usually got like a big old list for us, JD.
Well, no, I was gonna pop him in. You know, he doesn't like to show that side. He doesn't like to come into arguments. He likes to have educated debates.
These are educated debates, and I have a question. Why? Because shippers play a role in this, right? We've got drivers, we got carriers, we got brokers, we got shippers. We actually get 4 groups. Yes, Teal. And so
I'm scratching. Sorry.
I was like, well, here we go again. But here's the thing with shippers is that I remember when I worked for a broker, we were always scared that when the rates dipped, our shippers would take their contracted freight, their contracted lanes that they told us we would have, that we were awarded, they would take them back. And then they would push them out into the spot market. When rates tightened and they started increasing, shippers were like, listen, you got this contract. Remember that contract you signed, Chris Jolly? You got to pay that shit ass rate and take a bath. Good talking to you.
I've had that. They use a fancier term. It's called a seasonal rebid. Due to
oh my god, they have a term for it, Chris?
Of course they do. Of course they do. But I've been on both sides of it where they have forced it because there was a major market shift on both ends though. If it's flipped to where it's like, hey, we don't want our providers taking a bath on everything. We know what's out there. Our analysts have done that research. So it is, we preach on this all the time. Communication. You are your shippers' eyes and ears to the market. You need to bring this to them. Otherwise, you know what? They might not know. And guess what? You're one of 5 to 7 providers as a broker. If all 7 of you are saying the exact same thing, they will listen. You have to pick up the phone and make those phone calls, though. You can't talk to your associates about why this customer just doesn't realize what the market's doing right now. Have that conversation.
I don't think we can lose sight too of, I totally agree with that. We can't lose sight though of the economic impacts on the people we define as the shipper today, right? So the higher levels, the economic buyers have these accountability metrics on the people we interact with, and we can sell to them all the time of what's happening in the market. But then the economics of the company start to take hold and can only manage that relationship so much. And so I think I agree with almost everything that's been said around communication, relationships, etc. But I feel like it's treating the symptoms, and the problem stems back to market dependencies. As long as we're dependent on the market, we're going to continue to have these surrounding problems, right? You look at dedicated, you don't have that because the economics are built around, the pricing structures are built around the freight, and there's more consistency there.
Todd, in dedicated, they're not taking their freight back. The shippers aren't taking it back when it's cheaper and pushing it out to spot market.
No, because it's committed. Now there's fluctuations within the demand from like DC to store, but they're not pushing that out to the spot market. They might have to influx and add some capacity, but it's built on a more consistent volume. And so in essence, the RFP process is meant to build the church for Easter, right? And then they expect the carrier to house or pay for those seats that aren't being used and manage that cost without then trying to make up for it in the spot market. And so
that goes to you, Todd. So it's to you, Cassandra, but it goes to what Todd's saying. Abby says out here, it'd be interesting to see who is taking losses for customers right now to honor their commitments on their contractual freight, and who is declining loads to avoid big losses.
Yep.
Goes along with what you're saying there, Todd. She's kind of thinking on that line of a lot of people are talking, but who's actually putting forth the work to protect their clients?
Absolutely. I'm on the carrier side now with a brokerage, grew up in brokerage for 11 and a half years. And it's like, I've seen both sides of that. And the challenge is on the macro level, we're trying to reach an earnings or margin percentage and have no idea what the true underlying volumes are going to be, right? Because the actual volumes aren't consistent to what the RFP stated. And so then we're trying to make decisions on the spot market that are trying to support what's going to happen down the road or what did happen. But it often it's relationship specific. I know which customers I have a relationship with that are going to honor their commitments, in which case, if I'm going to last as a carrier or a broker, I'm going to honor my commitments to them and lose money or invest in the relationship.
I've seen it happen all the time.
Yeah. But go ahead.
Like Andrew Teal is our resident shipper, and he's always teaching us. And Andrew knows this because he's also been a broker and a carrier. But brokers and carriers, we take baths on rates. And many of them plan it, by the way. Like Ron has always told us, and Teal said this too, is that we know these seasons are going to come, minus COVID drama. We know the seasons are going to come. So many are planning for take a bath at a certain time of the year.
What is a bath, Cassandra?
It's like we're going to lose money. We know when rates get really high in the shippers in the summer who are moving energy drinks or alcohol, they are going to want you to honor those prices. You know you're going to be at a loss.
Yeah. And that's what the good brokers do, is they aggregate the smaller capacity, and they also smooth the pricing for the shipper. And in which case then the carriers or driver side is riding the waves that the broker's managing. But the buy side on the broker side is often flat from an RFP process for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, what do you think about all this?
I agree. I mean, especially with what Todd has mentioned and things like that. We talk about protecting, I have seen both from shippers. I've seen shippers that are really data savvy, and they understand that it's not about taking, hey, I did 1,000 loads this month divided by 22 working days. Therefore, I have X number of loads per day, and then just put that out there as an RFP. That doesn't work. Because you know what? I ship heavy Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, let's say. So as a carrier, being on the carrier side, well, how do I solve for that? If I don't know that's coming, how do I solve my inbound so I make sure I'm meeting that award every day of the week? But it really only seems to happen Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. So I kind of solve for that. And then all of a sudden it turns around and you get a seasonal spike. And then the shipper says, well, on Thursday, you didn't have the 8 trucks you said you would have. Mm-hmm. Well, because you've always been Monday, Wednesday, or Saturday, and Todd is exactly right, is we're all trying to skim across the top of the waves and kind of average, and averages of averages suck, but we're trying to average everything out from a shipper perspective. If you think about, say, a toilet paper shipper, when COVID hit, they probably weren't anticipating the level of demand. They've never seen that level of demand that they saw in the second week through the 4th week of March. Yeah. Doing the best they can, right? But you have to have that understanding then of, hey, look, I'm doing the best I can with forecasting my numbers. And when I call you and say, hey, I need a truck, and you said you would always have a truck for me and you don't, I'm not angry with you. It's not personal. It's just like, I'm doing the best I can. I know you're doing the best you can. And we talk about relationships. We talk about communication. But a lot of times, as others have said, is you don't really know until it happens. And that's hard. And when you're trying, in my perspective, and just where I am now, and not mentioning companies, but we have a lot of volume, which means I need to be able to execute that volume easiest for my business. And sometimes that means, look, if you can't take it today, tell me when you can take it. Don't just walk away. I can't take it today, I can take it tomorrow. Oh, great, I can work with my customer. The problem comes in is when the carrier says, no, I'm just not doing it. And then I go out to DAT and I see that truck posted on a load board in the same town where I need them to pick it up. And then that's where the hurt feelings come in. And that's when it does become a little personal. Both sides, all sides, I get that. And you know what? People have memories, people remember, people understand. They know things are business, but on the other hand and it's different for everybody. When does it stop becoming business and it starts to feel like you're just kind of kicking me? Yeah. And that goes from 3 months ago to what's going on to today. Are you just kind of kicking me? I mean, are you just kind of kicking me? I get it. I get it. You felt bad because you didn't get everything you wanted from me 3 months ago. I didn't have it to give you. Jesus. I want to do business because you know what? If you're moving my freight, I made a sale somewhere else, right? That's revenue to me. Freight is a cost center. I get that, but it's revenue. I'm moving a load because somebody out there said, hey, I need your stuff. I want to move it. I want to make that person happy. So they call me tomorrow and say, hey, I need your stuff. And I get to call you tomorrow and say, hey, I need your truck. And that's how this works.
Andrew, Greg Ackner had a story here, and I wanted to get your perspective. I want to get Cassandra's perspective on it, both of you guys' perspective. Greg said, hey, I regularly lose, good Lord, over $1,000 per load for a regular loyal client out of Georgia, April through June. Then he said at the end of the year, we net 15% off the account. North side happy. Loads loaded on time. Yeah. So kind of talk about that, Greg, because Andrew's a shipper, Cassandra's on the council side. So they both look at losses. They both try to figure out what is profitable and what isn't profitable and why should we take this loss or this bad. So talk about what you're talking about there, Greg, and how it ends up being positive at the end of the year.
So, one of the perspectives I try to take is a lot of people are looking day to day. They're living in a day-to-day world, or they're living in a week-to-week environment. And that could be any number of reasons. Why they're doing so is because maybe they don't have a good relationship with that customer who's not regularly giving them freight, or they don't have a contract, so to speak, with that customer where you make a commitment, they make a commitment back to you. So, there's a lot of things that can come into play with that, but the biggest thing that I try to establish with my customers and our carriers, which I'm not as much on the carrier side, I'm mostly on the customer side. The biggest thing we try to establish is setting a precedent before you go into do business. So you understand what is going to happen down the road. Customers that we do business with. Now, for us, we're only a reefer broker. I don't touch dry freight. So I feel the swings up and down a lot more. I feel capacity tight in certain areas a lot more. Typically, the people that we're doing business with, they're that savvy and they understand their own business within those markets. So going into those negotiations or going into those contract talks, bid season, whatever it may be, both sides kind of know the fluctuations. Both sides know the volatility going into it. So you have that conversation. What you're seeing and what we're dealing with a lot out there, especially when I'm trying to compete with people that are just destroying my rates by $2, $3 a mile, is they don't have that knowledge. They go in, get the volume, attack. Then when all of a sudden it hits Georgia in June, you see these tender rejections left and right. Next thing you know, the shippers that we were telling we were going to do X, Y, and Z for are coming back calling us saying, hey, can you do it for this rate? Well, no, now I can't because I didn't get time to establish the carrier base. I don't have a carrier base. So I'm just like you going out to the DAT and I'm going to do what I do.
Is that making sense to y'all too, Cassandra?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you see it, and you brought up a great point about trying to live day to day, and we're making too many decisions that way. It's a reason why it's called a quarterly business review. Right. I'm going to look at the last 3 months, and I want to see where I averaged out, and I'm going to see from the carrier side, hey, did your volume actually materialize? Let's have a conversation. Why did it? Why didn't it? From the shipper side, hey, I awarded you 10 loads per day. You said that's what you wanted in the award, but you gave me 4 trucks. What happened? Oh, I lost my inbound. Well, why didn't you tell me that?
Right.
Or did you really lose your inbound? Because you know what? When you turn that truck down at that tender, and now I'm scrambling or whatever, and all of a sudden I get a call from somebody else in your business on your brokerage side that says, hey, we got a truck that can pick that up. Or somebody else that says, I can grab that at a spot rate.
For those of you who haven't heard Andrew a couple times say as a shipper,
I lost my inbound. Well, why didn't you tell me that?
Right.
Or did you really lose your inbound?
Because you do. Nice, Teal. We like almost at the same time.
At that 10.
Here, I'll just mute people because I don't know who that echo is from. So what Andrew was saying though, that was interesting is that he's paying attention. He knows where his freight is. That was one thing I caught in between what he was sending. But hold on 1 minute. I want to give everybody a LinkedIn because I see our numbers starting to spike and do weird things. I think people are getting off work a little bit more. Yeah. So here in 10 minutes, I'm going to cut off the feed from LinkedIn, and I'm gonna send stuff that happened to me. You know
Chicken down.
All right, people.
So,
those of you on LinkedIn, I'm going to cut you off. You got to go to YouTube, and if you want to participate, you go to Zoom. But go to YouTube, people. I'm sick of LinkedIn right now because it's giving me a hard time. I can see it. Have you seen it, JD? It's been giving us a hard time.
I'm looking at it now, but there's a good question on LinkedIn. I think it's directed at Teal. It says, people need to understand that big box retailers are the ones that are actually bottoming out the rates. That's from Anthony Dunhoff.
Oh, Tony, a resident shipper. Go ahead, Greg. Wait, who was that question for? Was that for Teal? Look at you smiling.
I think it's for everybody, honestly.
Yeah, what's the question, I guess? And I'm not being snarky. I'm just saying, volume will always dictate. No. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Make one point real quick on what we were speaking about earlier. It's something that I don't know if it was mentioned or not. If it was, I'm sorry. But when you're looking at it from that daily, weekly, monthly standpoint, you also have to understand how that person on the other end of the line is being compensated. Because you're working for a big broker, you're making money that paycheck for that week on that load. And I'm not taking that load if I'm losing $1,000 and then I got to go explain to my boss why I can't make commission on it because they don't understand the seasonality or give a crap about the seasonality to begin with. So, and then secondly, to the big box driving down rates, yes, they're savvy. Yes, they're smart. Yes, they can do that. But those that understand the value of on-time percentages and understand in full loads sealed intact, they will pay up. We deal with those big box stores. They for sure pay up.
Do the big box stores, or like, what are we talking about, like Walmart? Are they controlling the entire market, Andrew?
I think anytime you have, how do you put it? Who's ever in that particular market that drives volume, right? So if I'm talking a small market where the only DC there is Walmart, then yeah, they're pretty much setting the tone for what inbound rates are going to look like into that region. Or from a lack of a better term, sometimes the outbound rates, because you can either get loaded at that particular DC again and bounce out, or you got to go to a neighboring market. I always struggle with the idea of, hey, the top mega carriers, which, the top 100 carriers control all the rates, or the top 500 shippers control everything. There's a company, I won't name names, that has looked at this. They published a white paper on it. I looked at it with my limited statistical analysis. Is the top 100 carriers move about 5% of the freight in this country.
Yeah.
So if you really think that 5% is controlling the other 95%, why do you want to participate, is what I would ask. Why would you want to participate in something that you firmly believe is that slanted against you? And it goes kind of the same way with the shippers, right? There's a lot of shippers out there. We're a high volume shipper. We hear it, hey, market dynamics. If you're not going to pay it, the next guy will. It's kind of the same thing. If you're not going to haul my freight for $1.85 a mile, the next guy will, and then, or whatever that looks like. So I think it's valid.
You can argue, Till, right now that a lot of the issues that's taking place in our market or ecosystem is people's lack of understanding of macro and microeconomics.
Exactly. And I've had that conversation with folks of, well, how long is this going to last? I said, well, what's spot price right now in China to the West Coast on a container ship? Oh, why do I need to know that? Well, our economy, for better or worse, runs on 70% consumerism, which means, especially right now, consumer product goods and retail, a lot of that still comes from China. So if spot rates are really high coming across the water, that means there's a lot of demand yet for whatever available capacity is still there, even post-COVID, which means it's all going to hit Southern California, which means it's got to get inland from somewhere, even if it stays in Southern California, even if it stays there and it just goes to a DC and people are sitting on it waiting, like, sooner or later it's going to turn, and this is my Christmas goods or whatever. As long as those spot rates are high, I know that there's going to be a lot of trucking demand in California. And as California goes, typically the West goes. And then as the West goes, everybody in the East, it's water in a bathtub. If I'm in the East and rates are really good out West, I'm going to take a cheap lane and I'm going to run out West, and I'm going to sit and run out of Southern California as long as I can, because they are getting fat cash.
Me too.
And all that water sloshes over to the West Coast.
Why
and then that goes away.
Why is it outbound California is so crazy right now? What is it? Explain to the viewers who don't know what you mean by that.
So you have all this freight hitting the California ports out of China, all the stuff that everybody's buying right now, because you know what? I can't hop on a plane and go to Disney World. I can't do all this stuff. So I'm sitting on Amazon, I'm sitting on Instacart, I'm sitting on Walmart Plus, whatever, and I'm buying stuff. Instead of the $7,000 I was going to spend this year in Disney World, or it's probably a lot more than that. I don't know. I don't go to Disney World, but instead of spending all that money or things like that, is, you know what? I'm going to make myself feel better. I'm going to order some goods, and those retail consumer product goods, a lot of that comes from California because it comes out of China, it comes out of the Pacific Rim, and that's where they land in this country. So you've got all this demand. It's very simple supply and demand. I've got all of this demand for trucking out of California because I've got all this freight sitting on my dock that I need to go out and sell and make up for the absolute horrible Q2 I had if I'm, Gap or a consumer products, whatever. Q2 sucked. Nobody was going to the mall and buying my stuff. I need to make up for that because you know what? At the end of the year, Q3, and I got to go to the stock market and say, this is what I did. And then my stock tanks or it goes up, and that affects my ability to, one, remain employed or to reinvest into my business. That's important.
It is rare we get the opportunity to pick a shipper's brain. Often they're, to be honest, they are so overworked and their companies don't let them speak out as much as they can, and they just don't have the freedom that a lot of people do. So
I'm on vacation today.
We have Andrew T. We have a very rare moment where we have a major shipper who's also completely understands our industry. So if you have questions, put them in the feed for JD to understand.
And I have a question. Okay. I guess I guess the one thing that I've always asked myself in trucking is, now that, let's say you have hours
Why
of
the hell did I
service.
get into trucking?
Yeah, honestly. How many people have successfully retired? I've met one.
Ingrid will. The rest of us are all gonna.
No, and
I
one
know
of the
several.
things that I think one of the things that I ask myself honestly is 70 hours, right? Of hours of service. Is 70 hours enough to make a good living, have a decent wage, being a truck driver? Most people, if you work 40 hours a week, whatever base salary people may get paid. Drivers have the ability of working 70 hours a week, making X amount of dollars a year. Even during these times right now, even with the rates being as low as they are, there's still drivers bringing home pretty decent paychecks. Now, are they where they need to be or they once were? Probably not. But like I said, I don't see this. I see these rates at least till the end of the year. Maybe October, November, it might change, but I don't see these rates changing anytime soon, at least not this year. And with fuel prices being where they're at, we have to be realistic and just know where it is. I mean, there's talks about saying that the fuel prices are no longer going to go above $65 a barrel. I don't know. That's way above my pay grade. But to the drivers, I always tell them, don't get a truck that's going to give you 4 miles to the gallon when in 2008 it was $4 a gallon per diesel. That, it's like I'm getting a Hummer to do something that I can't afford. But if I had a Nissan, I could probably do something more. Now, to each his own. The truck that drivers decide to have, some drivers have $30,000 trucks.
Wait, Martin, you have to give Teal a second, or Ingrid a
Oh,
second.
sorry. Go ahead.
You're so fucking smart. You got so much to tell us, but let us answer your question.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I'd let Ingrid go, but
go ahead. I was waiting for you.
I was going to say, well, fuel wise, right now it's 61.7 cents a gallon cheaper than it was last year at this time, give or take, right? So, fuel is a huge concern. Those are things that I, as a shipper, I pay attention to because I need to know what's going on in your world as a carrier, so I can understand why when you come to me and say, hey, we need a rate increase, why? Well, okay, that does make sense. Or, you know what, I can or can't do this. So, I think those people, and I've said this before, that are intellectually curious and learn outside of their own specific spot in transportation will do so much better than people who just like, hey, I'm a shipping and receiving clerk. This is all I know. This is all I do. Or I'm a driver, things like that. And I think you probably see that within your own fleets and things like that. But, we talk about 70 hours and things like that. And I'm not standing on a soapbox here, but I've been doing this a long time. I have never had a 40-hour-a-week job in transportation.
Me neither.
I'm talking in the office. I'm talking on a loading dock. I'm talking as a driver, as a broker. I have never, ever worked 40. The only time I work 40 hours is if I take 2 days a week off.
Shoot, Teal, you're supposed to be on vacation today.
I know, exactly. So, but I love this stuff. This is fun to me. But, things like that. So for me, I gotta hide your poll here because it's freaking me out.
I know. It did me too.
Okay, and I was hoping you guys didn't.
But for me,
see it.
even as a shipper, a driver, a carrier, it all kind of goes back to what the other gentleman had said about if you try to live day to day, if you try to drive your car, which is your business, 2 feet in front of that front bumper, you're going to crash every time. If you're looking 150 feet, 300 feet down the road, you're scanning the road, you're things like that, and you think about that as a business, you're going to do so much better. And that's when you realize that right now, from a rate perspective, I might be high. 3 weeks from now, I might be low. Am I doing today to take care of tomorrow? And that goes for all sides of it. And I think maybe this year, because people are kind of stressed out about COVID or other things, people have kind of taken their eyes off it. So it feels worse maybe than 2018 did. Though it might not necessarily be worse than 2018 then.
So you have a question, Cassandra. This is for everybody. This is from Mr. Lampshade. So I'm guessing this person did not want us to know who they were. How much money do carriers lose out on when a freight forwarder uses a broker to find a truck?
I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter.
Skimming off.
To be honest with you, our price is our price. If a broker makes $500 off of it, great. Our prices are price. I mean, the problem that a lot of carriers get into is that their driver tells them, well, they're paying $300 more over there. So then they get scared thinking that they underbid it. So they're trying to see what they did wrong. Personally, we always tell our drivers, okay, well, you have the ability to go work over there if you want, or this is what we got. What happened with us, that question actually did come into play with our drivers, because all of our drivers told us in 2018 that our rates were too low. We knew we were right where we needed to be because we knew this would happen.
Smart.
It happened, and we've only dropped our rates maybe $25, where I've seen carriers drop it 150, $100.
Okay, you're hitting on a good point. What is up with, and Ingrid, could you answer this? Because Martin just hit on a really important point. I see this on Facebook because I'm always creeping on Facebook to see what these drivers and carriers are up to. And I heard that. And so they do what Martin just said. They'll post, oh, look how much money I made, or look how much money I lost. And then they all get it competitive, and they're like, da, 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 and then they're like, oh my God, I didn't post it right. And da, da, da. So I have two questions for you. What's up with always thinking you're either not making enough money or you're not, or you got ripped off? And then the other, I'll leave the other question. I'll wait for the other question and give that other question to TJ. So what's up with that competitiveness going on?
Number one,
no freaking clue.
Well, usually I'm not. I mean, you know how I am with that. But here's the thing, and I'm going to go right back where we were in April with this. And that is, you know, honestly, there's no such thing as cheap freight. Cheap freight is only to the people who they can't pay their bills by what the freight is that they're taking.
I see Martin nodding his head too.
So in other words, you know what? If you live too high above your means, or you have too much expense, or you have too much overhead, and you can't meet with that rate that you're needing, and you're having to jack that price up, where's the problem at? I mean, it's there's transparent for you. So a lot of people go out, you know, they go out and decide to buy things at home, do a truck, whatever it is. You know, go into different programs of software. I mean, look at the money people spend in things like this that a lot of people it's into. And I think a lot of it is to try to figure out who's one up in the Joneses, who's got a little more than the Joneses. And sometimes it comes across as like they think it's a bragging right, and it really is just a turnoff.
Just, you know, freight brokers kind of do the same thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a very, very unique situation. We actually park close to a separate trucking company that has a bunch of trucks, and in their parking lot, there's a ton of Escalades and Jaguars and whatever. Anyways,
just hit on where I was going too.
Yeah. Now, when March came around, there was drivers calling us for work. Some of them were telling us that they were 2-3 months behind on their mortgage, and they were blaming the rates being cheap. I told one of them, because I had a good relationship with him, I'm like, if you're 2 or 3 months behind on your mortgage, that's not a rate thing, man.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
You know?
And that didn't just happen in the last week.
It just had, correct.
Exactly.
Well, they do talk. They do talk all the time, and they try to blame it on rates, but you know, there's trucks out there, and it's a pride thing. They even if they're wrong, they're still trying to say, you know, like, oh, this is what I make, just to kind of make up for it. But you know, they do like to inflate and say those things, but it does come down to your lifestyle, right? I mean, if you can't adapt your lifestyle, your style of living, you know, as you go through any job, I think, you know, where you're making money depending on a market. My thing is this: is you got into it knowing that the market was volatile. Like, that's what it's always been.
Yes.
And that's what it always will be. So if you got into it, you can't hang and you can't adapt, then you're not built for it. And there's nothing wrong with it. It does clean out the people that can't make it. And that's the whole point of this, is that the people that do want to work hard and do want to try hard, like Andrew said, you got to put the time in. I remember when I first started, I would stay after just to listen to the guys that were staying after because they were busy. I wasn't busy yet. And I remember walking over the window, we were upstairs, and everybody right at 5, a bunch of people were walking out, and the one lead guy's going, you know, there goes 30 grand a year. There goes 30 grand a year. There goes 30 grand a year. And at first I kind of thought, that's kind of not mean, but you know, harsh. But at the end of the day, that's what their mindset was. Yep. Their mindset was, if I want to make it, if I want to make the money, if I want to be successful, I got to stay after and do what I got to do. And same thing with drivers. It's the same thing. You got to be on the road. You got to be driving and ready to go and keep moving. If not,
TJ, no. I'm tired of it being the driver's fault of them needing to live between their means when we have brokerages that don't live between their means.
Or shippers who are overspending and then want to cut rates in transportation
and their
departments.
main.
Thank you.
It goes across the board. It goes across the board, but drivers are the ones.
I tell
the ones telling you.
TJ, to be careful of how much when they first become brokers, and everybody's new here, and I guarantee you, Chris Jolly's going to tell you the same thing. New brokers, don't spend your money, because what they do. I am a conspiracy theorist. Teal. Stop.
I did say a word.
I do admit that I'm a conspiracy theorist. And I continuously think that brokerages know. You work off commission brokers. So brokerages know, in my little crazy head, that if you buy more shit, the fancier the cars, the vacations, the suits, whatever else shit you're doing, and your fancy ping pong tables, I made that one up, that means you're going to be hooked on that commission, and you ain't going anywhere. You're going to sit at that fucking desk.
Well, I think that, and that goes, it goes back to that market thing that carriers or drivers, some drivers are posting and being loud about their rates because we've created this ecosystem of market driven, and we reward and want and hire these energized people trying to make more money and win in the transaction. And then it gets into this back and forth, us versus them on all sides. And so that's where brokers might not be, because they're at a bigger company, might not be posting about their wins, but they're celebrating their wins and celebrating when they make dollars, because that's what we're rewarding.
It comes down to mentorship at that point, if you want to talk brokerage office side, because there's a reason. If you cling to those guys that have been in it for a while, there's a reason they've been in it for a while. And they'll try to tell you, and people just don't want to listen sometimes. I mean, they'll make little comments if you go buy a car or knew this or that or whatever, and they'll get you to where, I've had some good mentors that, have been in my head and saying, hey, always remember, man, you're making a lot of money on this account, but that account could go away tomorrow. And that's what got me into sales. That's when I started reaching out, trying to land more and more accounts, because it was one of those things, I got to have that protection. But see, that's preventative maintenance. That's being out ahead of it rather than just sitting there living the lavish lifestyle and then when it comes back here. But, if you've got the right mentors and, or as a leader,
it applies to every one of us. So like, I'm paranoid. I have 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm fucking paranoid about it every day. That if LinkedIn decides they don't want live anymore, they don't like Cassandra, there goes all of our things that we've been working toward. That's why I'm pushing you guys to 18 different platforms. I think about the same thing you guys are thinking about. Like, it's like,
LinkedIn.
What happens if you lose something?
You got to pass it on. So if you had the mentors that were telling you,
you got a backup truck. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. You told us that the first time we ever talked to you. You talked about how you have your truck that you do, and then you have a backup one just in case.
Yeah.
And that's where the cost is going. And the drivers, owner operators, and companies are managing all of the risk in the overhead of all this volatility, and it's all falling down. So there's irresponsible drivers and management, like some people have talked about, and inability to manage their business, but it's not an easy thing either. And so FreightWaves has even released some stuff about how the economics of running trucks is starting to not make sense, because the costs have gone up so much, but the market is still fluctuating. And so there's a macro issue here that we got to be really cognizant of.
Just like anything, when they change like that, somebody's going to step up and be a leader and figure it out. So are you listening? Are you making connections? Are you going to be that person? So like I said, when you were mentored by somebody that's older than you in the industry, it was different back then too. So are you going to in turn pass that on and mentor somebody else, or maybe come up with the idea and figure it out? Like you said, I mean, yeah, the cost of running a truck's different, but you could still run it. You got to change your mindset and figure it out. Are you listening? As things are happening.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about, is how do we give the owner operator part of our fleet tools and resources of financial business management, things like that, that's mentoring and carrying on.
I could speak on that. When we actually do that, we do that with our drivers. We've been doing that for a while. Most of our guys, I'd say the majority of our guys, knock on wood, they all have good savings. We've been keeping track of it with them, but that's just happened within the last few months. But one of the things, what if this is one of the things that I've always struggled with in trucking. In the 17 years of dispatching drivers, think about this. They all pay themselves with the 1099. You all give them straight checks. I think that we have to start educating drivers. If let's say they all paid themselves like through ADP or paychecks. and they understood that basic concept of paying themselves an actual paycheck and how to file taxes the proper way. And then they could start seeing that they really are a business. They're not an individual person making a paycheck. They have a business. If they were all, none of them, how many owner operators in reality file for an LLC?
I know that answer. And
you know what I mean? And but then they want to tell you that they're business owners. Well, let's start.
JD and I had a really hard time, Martin, when we first started with Matt Gaines. JD and I were on a mission. When rates were really low, we were so lost, and we just wanted, remember this, JD? All we wanted to know was, how much does it cost for you to run this truck?
Oh, God.
Dry van, you're just a regular owner operator. Like, what are your expenses? Ingrid and Nerfad and I think Irina were the only ones who came on. But before they were able to tell us, only 3 drivers, before they were able to tell us, JD and I spent a long time on this search. TJ would remember this, and so would Teal. Like, I think we annoyed you guys because we were like, can someone please tell us what your costs are to run a fucking business?
That's more than just the owner operator too. I mean, as a company, one part of, the vetting process and the safety part, one thing we do is we look at that, we evaluate that. So, you can come through, and if you get those owner operators on your team or on your squad that don't have, you look at what their truck payment is, what their cost of operation is, you compare it to the freight you have, you compare it to the type of lane they're coming in, they're being recruited for. If you're recruiting them for a lane that pays X amount, and you look at their cost analysis is and what they have spending wise and how much it takes to run their truck, you may run into issues. You're probably going to run into issues, and you can stay out ahead of that stuff if you do that as well. Because some guys are just trying to get any job they can, and it could throw off your safety rating.
On that note, do you guys think? Oh, go ahead, Teal.
I was gonna say, at the end of the day, and it kind of loop back to something, is when we talked about cheap freight or not, and Ingrid made a great point about that, is all sales is solving a problem for somebody else. All services is solving a problem for somebody else. I've got something that needs to go somewhere sometime. Ingrid's got a truck that's available to move that something somewhere at some time. She provides a service. She solved a problem for me. So when we talk about cheap rates and they say, let's say the average is $2 a mile and somebody moves it for $1.85, that problem that may have been solved for that driver or that carrier might not be just tied to the rate. I've got a driver in Louisiana that has to get home for his daughter's wedding in Wisconsin. And you know what? To ensure that my driver gets home for their daughter's wedding in Wisconsin, I know it goes for $2 a mile, but I want to get that freight so I can get them home. So I go to that shipper and I say, hey, I want to do this. I need to do this. I got a driver ready to go, full hours, $1.85. What's it going to take for me to move that? Because I want to take care of my guy. Right. It's about solving problems for one another. And sometimes when you see those posts on LinkedIn or you see those posts on Facebook or Instagram about, hey, I made $15,000 this month or this week, I'm sorry. You don't know what problems they solve for whomever. The other guy that's saying, hey, I didn't do that well, but you know what? I solved a lot of problems for me because I got to go home and walk my daughter down the aisle. I didn't make as much money, but that's not what was important to me on this load.
So Cassandra, you got a question out there.
Exactly.
It's from Steve Elliott. And when this question, Cassandra, he posed it towards truckers, but I actually think it's for the entire trucking industry. So Steve Elliott said, business literacy is an issue for most truckers, but I would argue business literacy is an issue for the transportation industry.
Yep. Yeah.
Guys,
It's
I
in the
knew
industry.
brokers that didn't understand how much money they truly had because they had money coming in from shippers. Then they had to pay money out quickly for carriers. Then they had to pay out cargo claims. And then they had to watch the receivables. And they just literally, because there's so much fucking money coming and going, it's a little abnormal compared to most businesses. They didn't know where they stood. They didn't even understand how much money they were making because it was confusing.
Imagine the states making every driver or owner operator, making it mandatory for them to pay their own insurance outside of the company. Just that. Or just take away the driver's fuel card. Have him pay for his own fuel without a fuel card. Those two things alone would knock out probably 50% of the drivers right now.
If you said I can't even give you a fuel advance.
Yeah, because most drivers right now, somebody got them into the business, whatever, thinking that they were going to make $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, without understanding the true complexity of it. And then you mix in taxes, no LLC, no S corp, no, you know, no business knowledge.
The complexity is done nothing but increase too. Well, back the trucking companies that were founded on these core principles and might have had good experiences that allowed them to succeed. The outliers that had poor practices kept coming and going, but the ones that have even sustained still didn't have or need to do any of this economic kind of understanding of what's going on in the industry, all this cost and all this stuff. It used to be something where you could go out and find the freight and it was at whatever rate and you could make the economics work, but there's so much more, and the shippers are only demanding more and more visibility, technology, aka investment into the business, so that then goes back into trying to manage the complex economics.
Actually, Todd, me and Teal, I think, were just talking about this not too long ago, or maybe it was V. I asked you or Teal, one or the other, why do shippers demand visibility at all times?
But the thing is,
it's trickle down from their customers.
No,
Exactly.
because
customer does.
No. Shippers ask for visibility, but they don't even know what visibility they need or want. So that's the issue.
Because the customer's asking for it. If the customer asks for it, that's just what it is. You may not even know what it means. It's something.
The shippers like Teal or V, I don't know if either one of you demand visibility in your career. You don't have to talk about current positions. You can talk about it at any point in time from your carrier.
I can talk about current status and why it's important. It'd be pretty specific if you want to hear about it.
About visibility, where the freight is. Oh, go for it.
For myself, anyway. If you want to hear about it, sure. It's pretty simple for us. We deliver to malls, we deliver to stores, we deliver to very difficult places, and we schedule staff according to those deliveries. And those staff get paid regardless of whether the shipment shows up or not. Visibility is very important for us because we can pivot throughout the day. If we know something's delayed, we can send the staff home. We can get them to do something else, right?
Okay.
Also, obviously, has to do with sales. When you're running it's called a lean operation, you always want to be at a very specific point in stock, right? So we have a schedule, and we project a schedule to make sure that there's always product on the floor. If a shipment's a day late, or if it's even a couple of hours late, it could impact sales. We don't see where it is. If we didn't have visibility, we could only be reactive. We could never be proactive. You know what I mean? So visibility
God, I'm
is
such an asshole, V, because this whole time I've been like, those assholes, those shippers don't need. Afraid is it all the time.
But I'm sure it happens somewhere, and that's I think that's what is really good about Mad Gains, but also really bad about Mad Gains, is that we have all these really smart people, but most of the people here do things right? And we don't have a lot of examples of the people that do things wrong, so we can ask them, hey, why do you do it this way, right? But I'm sure Teal and I, right, and Ron, like, we know why we want visibility. It may be different reasons, but we know exactly why we want it, just like we know why we want specific KPIs, why we want X or Y. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that just clock in, clock out, do their 40 hours, and it's like, hey, this is just how it is, right? Like, I want it because other people want it, right? Like, Coke is doing it, so like I want.
And it's consumer driven too. The Amazon effect, consumer driven, and then efficiency too, because supply chain costs have gone up for shippers too. So they're trying to find efficiencies in reducing headcount as well.
But when
so I
they
think all
demand
that
visibility and they don't truly need it, it costs the rest of us a fuck ton of money. Like, for us to convince Ingrid, for us to convince Chad's group of carriers to get to agree to consistent track and trace, that costs money.
Yeah, but long term, if it helps V plan labor better or plan their transportation management team better, and the technology can, through visibility, once you actually get a compliance and visibility, the long term is that it starts to play out through artificial intelligence and then also planning labor more effectively and things like that.
I think Todd really hit on something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you've also got to think 87% of all trucking companies are 10 trucks or less in the country.
Yep.
So you're looking at what that cost is, okay? The new program, the Locust tracker that goes on a trailer instead of with the driver or with the truck itself, it's always on the load in the trailer, is phenomenal. That's the only one that I will actually agree to, and I'll be honest with you.
I don't blame
Where everybody looks at stuff, well, the shippers are paying for it. The customer's paying for it.
I think
and it's a small, but Cassandra and I've talked about this. You know, I go back to another area, and I'm gonna swap this and let you have it back, Andrew. Is that when you start putting a tracker on me, or you want me to go to Macropoint or Fork Heights or any of this stuff, I don't mind you tracking me, but I'm a solo female. And at night, you've got third parties that are sitting there that get minimum wage, and they're seeing where I'm at. I'm by myself. Do I have an expensive load on? Oh, that might be munitions. Oh, my goodness, look what else is on here. Do you think somewhere across the country that capability, and I'm going with Cassandra's conspiracy theory, that can become reality is real? Because what happens then? And then who and how and what is going to be there for me? Yep. I look at this stuff. I'm going to be the first to tell you I'm your best communicator. You're probably going to know before I have a tire blow. Yep. I'm going to call you and say, hold that thought, listen. Yeah. And you're going to hear it go. But I'm just saying is these are some of the things as where I'm sitting now in this. And I'm going to go one more step and then I'll shut up. I promise this time. Is I go back 40 years, 41 in December. Okay. I am having to learn and bring myself up to where y'all are my mentors instead of me being as much a mentor from 40 years with my experience, because y'all are the ones that are having to teach me all of the new technologies, all of the new spot markets, all of the new data, everything there is. And I'm eating it up. I'm loving it. But finding the solutions to this stuff is what's keeping me here at almost 60 years old. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to ever retire. Yep. Because I see what y'all have and I want more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so don't ever leave me.
The other more likely conspiracy theory too is that they're getting in with the shippers to demand transparency, to get transparency, and then what are they going to do with that data, right? The Google Maps monetization of that data and start to do digital freight matching and everything with now the data that they got the shippers to force the carriers to provide. So,
yeah, I think there's two things that, we talk about cost and smaller companies. Think about how expensive a flat screen TV was. Now I see one right there behind Chad, and I'd be very, very shocked if he paid 4 figures for it, whereas that used to be a 5-figure purchase. So the more we kind of push this, and you talk about early adopters and things like that, the more we kind of push this and we get into those things, the cheaper it's going to get. It's like anything else in the world, right? You compare prices on the laptop we're all using today versus 15 years ago, and that will come. Right? But it doesn't come unless there's pressure behind it. And I think Todd really hit on something that's great, is the Amazon effect. And I've talked about this in the past, is when I first started doing this, you'd order something online, and not so much even online, anywhere. And it was like, hey, it'll be there in 7-10 business days. It showed up in 5 and you were ecstatic. Mm-hmm. Now I order a $10 shirt on Amazon and I know exactly when it left the DC. I know when it hits FedEx's DC, got on the plane, all that stuff. And they provide that for me and I'm fine. I probably don't need it. But I feel good about that. But every person that's involved in the industry, we're bringing our personal lives into our work life as far as expectations. So if I can get that on a $10 Cornell t-shirt from wherever, how come I can't get that on a $75,000 load of toilet paper? Or how come I can't get that on a $1 million load of TVs? Yeah, I know exactly where my tube of toothpaste is that I ordered off Amazon Prime every step of the way. How come I don't know where 53 feet and 40,000 pounds of my product is? And I think it's not unreasonable to expect that expectation anymore, because it's just creeped into our lives. It's the same thing. I fully expect I can go down the highway at 80 miles an hour in my personal vehicle and be okay, because the capabilities of the personal automobile now versus the 80s are vastly different. And I think trucking is being dragged into that, and transportation is being dragged into that. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have growing pains. We're going to have those things. We get that. And we're going into those things. But from a shipper's perspective on trucking, I don't know the name of the driver. I just know where the truck is. I hope to know where the truck is, I should say. And all I know is, hey, there's a Bob's Trucking Company truck, and it's in Wichita, Kansas, and it's on its way to Las Vegas or wherever it's going. And that's all I need to know, because I know, hey, this guy's still rolling. doing the math in my head at 50 miles an hour, he's probably going to be on time. I don't have to worry about that. Let me go find the ones I do have to worry about. And it's an efficiency thing from a shipper perspective.
I'll tell you that for those of you, we're going to start wrapping up. I want to go around the circle and see what everybody has to say for final thoughts, final conclusions. I'll tell you that please message me and let me know. You're on YouTube now. You see all the videos. It's 2 years worth of videos. Compare last Friday and the Friday before to this Friday, which is a much more, I don't know what you would call this, JD, like a loose structure. It's flexible. It's open mic night. So let me know if you want to keep Fridays as open mic night. Wednesdays will remain structured as they are. But give me feedback. Let me know. But for now, let's start with Chad. Chad, 2 hours later, you're finally on here.
Is it 2 hours later? Has it been that long?
I've been trying to bring Chad. I told Chad, I was like, come on, give us your thoughts. And Chad, I have kind of been railing on Facebook a bit. I learn a lot from Facebook, but then I see posts and I'm like, Jesus. But you could say the same for any social media app. But what are your thoughts lately? What's going on and what can we learn from you?
Well, what brought me on is whenever you start talking about cost, controlling your cost. Everybody knows that, or if you do know me, then you know that I love talking about rate per mile, getting good rates and how to make more money. But the one thing that I don't talk about that much because it's not that sexy is controlling cost. And but that's the one thing that I've been doing this 10 years, 100% spot market, have no desire to do relationships. I mean, relationships are good. I've done relationships before, but I'd much rather run the volatility of the spot market. Been doing it for 10 years. I love it. This is if the volatility went away and it was everybody the same, then I would get out of it. I'll be done.
It'd be so boring.
It would be completely boring. Now that brings me back to talking about cost. When I first started this 10 years ago, controlling cost, when I first started, I was completely broke. I owed all this money on a truck and everything, and that's when I ran the hardest and I ran the cheapest at that time. But when I started getting my head above water and I started, where I got free of the debt, I started making more money. And I say that to say this. So if the brokers that are watching this, and I talk to a lot of carriers, I talk to a lot of owner operators, the guys out there that run the cheapest are the ones that are most in debt. You find one that owes a lot of money in child support, they're running the cheapest. You find one that needs to make that truck payment, that are desperate for money, they're running the cheapest. And that's advice to brokers, because I know a lot of brokers watch this. I don't care if we give advice to brokers. I'm still going to get my money when it comes to rates. But anyway, did you have any questions with me about that other stuff?
No, it was well said, though. I've seen, actually, you are living and walking how you speak on your Facebook group. For those of you who aren't part of it, Rate Per Smiles on Facebook, I think you just go there and you request, and Chad will let you. I learned a lot from that group, although I also, it's some of the stuff I'm lost on. So I appreciate you coming on here and educating us on that.
I had one question for you, Cassandra. What does broker? I know you used to be a broker or worked with a broker, right? So my question is, and I know there's other brokers on there. Do they not like when carriers talk about the rates they're getting?
They don't seem to care. I'm the only one
Brokers
who's
don't
like,
seem
what
to
the
care.
hell? They don't seem to mind. In fact, I've seen many brokers say, "I'm glad the carriers are making money." Da, 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 da. I mean, who's on here? Todd or Drew? You could tell me differently.
I am. Yeah. I look at Ingrid, and she talked about the dangers of her job. Now she faces COVID. We're all here in offices, and if you see those stairs behind me, that's the biggest threat to my job. So, I'm okay with paying for that, because I know truck drivers here that are coming cross border. When they get back into Canada, they can't even go visit their families because they're so scared. So, for sure. And at what point too, is the job worth it for what kind of money you're making? So 100%, I'm okay with paying for that, because I know that I'm not out there doing and putting myself at risk. She is. That's not me. And same with you, Chad. And you know your self-worth. And that's why you said you started making more money once you understood the value of yourself and what business you were trying to run. So anyways, I appreciate it.
I love this version of you, Drew.
Well said.
Do you guys remember 2 hours ago? He showed up with his corporate shirt on.
He's got the corporate Hawaiian going. It's okay.
And then I was like, Drew, you better come back as the real Drew. And he literally
right.
went in the closet, changed, came back out as the real Drew, and now we fucking love him.
I don't ever need to hear that noise again. I don't know who that was, but
Teal forever. That was awesome. Anything to make Teal cringe or uncomfortable, I'm game. I'm all there for it. So, Todd, give us your thoughts, closing thoughts for today and moving forward.
I think it's a great topic. I think there's a lot of things that were hit on that solve the micro issue. Again, the macro issue is a huge issue that we all need to work together. I think it's like anything else, though. There's a lot of opinions on both sides. And until we stop and listen to understand the other side, we can jump to conclusions as to why the side is doing what they are. And so until we can come together and really stop and try to continue to make little step progress in mentoring or in having conversations with the other side and talking through that, I think then that's when we're going to truly see progress. And so this, like this group is the start of that and starting to ebb the conversations. We can't let the outliers take the day. We can't let the exceptions and the noise take the day and come in and pollute the progressive conversation into making things better. So
I think you hit on something big there. Go
Stay
ahead.
with
I'm
us,
sorry.
Todd, because with Madtropolis. Sorry, Andrew. Stay with Madtropolis forever because you're exactly who we want.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Teal.
I was going to say, I think Vitaly kind of brought it up about being an echo chamber. And, the people that tune into this show and as this grows are going to be the people that want to do it right. But there isn't a person in this show or this community that doesn't know somebody who probably would very much would benefit from this environment and this knowledge share. Ingrid, I'm sure you talk to a lot of drivers and a lot of different people like, hey, look, you need to take some of your 10-hour break and just read some of this stuff, go through a YouTube video and learn some of these things. Or, if we look at JD is like, hey man, I'm working with this technician on the floor or whatever. Hey man, let me tell you about this. There is so much more to this industry than just your toolbox. There's so much more to this industry than just that truck in the bay. There are places that are totally free, totally understandable by experts. You can go learn. And it's not about everybody talking together on this screen. It's about what we learn here and then turning around to the people behind us that aren't participating. And we really need to be good about that.
Please, everybody, please. I never say this because he's my nemesis, but please listen to Teal. Please listen to him.
Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me.
For God's sake, please listen to him. And one more thing, can we start the hashtag free Teal? Can we start that? Because I like Teal on vacation. It's amazing.
I've been on vacation 2 days. You know what I've done? I've spent 22 hours on freight, at least 22 hours over the last 2 days, just reading and learning and talking with people. I'm a 10th level freight nerd. It's weird.
It's just do it.
No.
Teal, you guys. He needs more vacation time so that he can enlighten us. And Minute Maid. So V, we're gonna let Ingrid close out this whole show. But V, what you got for us, V?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are.
Oh, look at him all frozen. Did you guys know that V has been helping me move to YouTube? It's one of the reasons that I am successful at YouTube. I like V like this too. He's nicer to me when he's like, okay, go ahead. Not that face. That's the face he gives me all the time, you guys. Ingrid, ready to close out this show?
I'm ready. I really am. I mean, I need to close it out. I sit and I listen to you talk amongst yourselves about between whether you're a shipper or whether you're a broker, and I'm kind of disappointed there's not more drivers here today and more carriers, to be honest with you. I know that I reached out to quite a few, but yeah, I know. I did too. But this just shows me something here. This means that the outreach is working. We have different areas we need to reach out a little further in. And I think that, it's kind of like passing that olive branch, like passing it across from the broker to the driver world, shipper to the carrier side, driver to carrier, carrier to driver, whatever. I don't ever want this to stop because I think this is the first step that I've seen in 40 years that's reached out and brought in every person, and the networking is given to us. And it's just amazing to sit back and watch. I can't explain it. I just can't get there and explain that part of that. But I think that the rates right now, you know, who I'm working with has just been phenomenal of working with me and meeting the people like Josh and getting loads there. I think the rates, as we all know, are going to bounce up and down, just like they have. It's a 5-year cyclic deal. 2 to 5 years, everything changes. Freights, equipment, brokers, shippers, carriers, technology, everything, rules, regulations, the whole industry changes. 2 to 5 years, we're cyclic. So, you know, we can't sit and say we punch a clock at 8 to 5, we go home, we're off every weekend, and we're going to retire at that in 40 years. It doesn't work that way. So we either got to decide to work together and make it work, and I have no doubt we can't, or we either need to decide that we're just going to keep educating until we do make that progress and make it happen.
Absolutely. And on that note, I would like to challenge everybody who's, especially the people on Zoom. I see that, hey, by the way, JD, did you see that Chandler finally showed up?
Dude, I told Chandler and said, get your video together. This butt's gonna put
Chandler is big time right now. He's so big time with his boats.
This is what he said, Cassandra. What do you need from me? I heard that I was requested.
He's got to take that big crown off of his head. It's so heavy on his head. So here's what I want to do to Metropolis before you guys all close out for the day, before V's going to educate us and close us out. I want Metropolis to take note. I want you to go to YouTube and LinkedIn, especially if you're been on Zoom this whole time. And every single person that's on YouTube or LinkedIn, I want you to make friends with them. I want you to reach out to them because they're your people. Everybody who's on this show, we're all similar-minded people. We all should be hiring each other. We all should be working together. We all should be best friends. And here he is. But he wore a shirt that says his stupid company name.
Chandler, why do you have on a company
Why
shirt?
you do this, Chandler?
I'm at work. See?
We're all at work. V's at work. JD's at work.
Chandler got a fresh haircut and everything, baby, looking sexy.
Why is he wearing it? And he got a haircut. You know he didn't get a haircut for us. He never cut his hair. V, what you got for us? Since
I'm at work, see?
Big giant trader.
Before I was distracted by that big bright logo. There's a lot of good things that were said, even in the closure. There's so many topics that could be their own shows.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, Kyle pointed out a very good point there in chat. He said this show was a lot more calm than the last rate discussion, and that's probably because of Mad Gains. And you know what? It's true, because not only have we gotten to know each other, but in general, because of the discussion, and not just, you know what I really like is that you, as much as people like to comment on rates, you drove the discussion elsewhere. You took the discussion to insurance, you took the discussion to maintenance, you took the discussion to talking about niche, whether people liked it or not. And guess what? People tuned in and they learned a lot more, right? There's a lot to learn for all of us. Like even in this group, we can't generalize, but especially outside this group, for every JD, there's 100 people who don't understand. For every Cassandra, there's 1,000 people that don't understand, right? We just got to keep talking about it. Just got to keep driving the discussion, growing the group. I think like even the move to YouTube, like that's a progression for us.
It is.
And is an indication that we should always be going forward in your career and your personal development. Always progress.
Agreed.
So really love everything that's happening here. And as always, thanks for having me on.
Damn, JD, do you think we're out of a job now? You think V's just
wow? That's pretty strong. Cassandra, I was just going to tell you that you did an amazing job with your guest on today, and I apologize.
Don't you come on here.
Yeah,
don't you come on here
watching you guys.
This is incredible.
I want to tell you guys why we give Chandler a hard time. If anybody's new to Madtropolis, it's because Chandler came on the Great Rate Debate. Actually, the first time I hit the fucking live button in my entire career, Chandler was right there waiting. And
I didn't know what was going to happen. It just, my thing started to spin. I was like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen? It's like we're going to launch on a roller coaster. And we did.
And we did. And I think Chandler and I fought about something, but
we fought about something you said about our Texas governor using beer trucks, because you have a lot of beer drinkers in the audience, using beer trucks to deliver food. Well, we have some funny alcohol rules in Texas, and the governor's trying to get the alcohol agency to play nice with the other agencies so we can get stuff delivered.
And then Chandler and I fought over that because we're freight nerds. And then Chandler was right there when I went live, waiting for me, ready to fight again. And instead, he became my buddy. And then, if you guys know, when he shows up on my shows, he usually has this big list of all the things he wants changed and addressed in the industry. And indeed, he got in a fight. I'm sorry, are we boring you, JD?
No, you're not.
okay. I'm sorry. You know what? We'll let.
At least he's on the screen. I saw him actually leave earlier in the show, and that really messes up the producer.
Wait. So I actually had a cavity this morning, and they gave me naproxen to take for pain. So I am in a little bit of pain right now, and the naproxen does have me a little bit sleepy. I will admit that.
That's incredible, JD, because I told Cassandra I was going to brush my teeth to be on the show today. And like, it helps. You brush those teeth a few times a week and you don't have those issues.
Dude, twice a week is all I need, baby. Twice
Amanda
a week.
Miller, I see your comment. JD, Chandler, for the parts that you were when you took off your crown and you were able to listen in from your high horse, what did you think?
I was really impressed with what Martin said about the owner-operators treating their business like a real business. And I think it could have made their applications for the PPP loans more expedited to get approved instead of having to do the 1099 thing. So I think that would protect them with a lot of more, it's just big practice. I hear it on some of the radio shows too, that the drivers need to run their business like a real business. And I think they'd have a lot more data available to be more successful with it.
We can't bring Kyle on.
Well, yeah, what is going on here?
Look at Kyle.
No, I knew Kyle's little sexy ass had on a fucking suit and shit, and I just wanted to
Of course.
He have time to do the okay.
I knew it.
Chandler did look so fresh and wonderful. And then you brought Kyle on.
This is every day.
Every day.
To it.
Well,
Kyle,
wait a second.
How do you keep your Mediterranean tan in Chicago? You have to teach us.
I treat myself to 30 minutes outside for lunch every day in between my 14-hour work days.
Do you have a boat? Because Chandler has a boat.
On a boat?
No, I do not.
Chandler, the rumor is you own a boat, a really, really, really big boat.
I heard it was a yacht.
That's a rumor.
You can't
That's a rumor.
classify it as a boat. Yeah,
that's just a rumor.
He has a boat, guys. Trust me.
Okay, we have got to end this feed. We have to. And for those of you out there, please make sure you hit subscribe button on YouTube. Kyle, what you got for us? Give us a closing statement.
Closing statement. I'll just reiterate what I said in my little message, and I really do mean it. I think the difference from the first time you did this back in April, and I was a part of that, and it was insane in a good way.
I know.
Yeah. But a positive one, because look at where we're at today now. So today, and I've been working, but I've had you guys on the whole time listening. It's been calm. Everyone's been friendly. And I think that's because everyone has better knowledge of each other and each other's problems. And when you can better understand what somebody else is doing in a transaction, it makes you feel better about what you're doing. And look at it today. It's living proof due to the work of you and JD. And I can't say enough good stuff about what you guys are doing. Please keep it up.
Oh my God, thank you. Wow,
Yeah,
I'm so glad
you're
brought him
doing
on.
a great job.
What? Chandler, now you say it.
And then
Okay,
he's gone.
you guys, hold on. Let's put on JD's favorite music. Oh, no, that's not his favorite song. Hold on. This is his favorite song. JD.
Cassandra, are you gonna give them a little teaser about the stuff you've been annoying me about that you're building with your fancy people, or are you gonna just keep that a secret?
I'm just going to keep it. All I have to say is that everybody, you need to subscribe to YouTube. You need to follow us on LinkedIn. You need to stay close to me and JD because we're about to roll out some different stuff. And also, give Andrew Teal a bunch of shit in Chandler. It's very important. And have a great weekend. And remember, service over price, baby. Bye. Have a good weekend, you guys.